Hello, testing. Okay, that's fine.
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect.
Um, I don't see anything on the YouTube live stream though. Is there a delay?
Yeah, there's usually a delay of about 20 seconds,
Oh yeah, it says started streaming. Okay, cool.
and I feel like I would have been muted right at the start, but it should be okay now.
Yeah, it sounds like looks like no sound.
No sound, okay. It should be coming back very shortly. And oh,
Sounds good. All right.
we now have sound. We are good to go. Wonderful.
Woo.
Thank you for bearing with us, everyone. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Deep Dive, featuring one of my favorite bloggers on the internet, Nat Eliason. Nat, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I feel like you and I have had a very funny last month of loving on each other's mutual work and excited to to do this to have this chat.
Yeah, man, it's a good time. So, for the people in the audience who might not have come across you before, can you give us an introduction, please?
Yes, so my name's Nat. I'm the founder of the marketing agency Growth Machine. We primarily do SEO and content marketing services for consumer SaaS and e-commerce businesses, but I'm also known for my Rome course and kind of like teaching Rome through my Effortless Output course in Tiago Forte's Forte Academy School. And then I've got a popular blog at natalison.com, which sort of talks about basically anything under the sun that I'm interested in. Tons of book notes, tons of like mixture of productivity, personal finance, business, whatever topics on there. So kind of like a bunch of different things going on, which is fun because I find that like I people discover random different things and then I get to talk to them and I don't know. It's fun getting to work in a bunch of different areas like this. So.
Yeah, you've got quite an eclectic mix of content types, and people are telling me that my volume is way too low on the stream, so I'm trying to bump it out. How is the audio now? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. My
Are they saying
goodness.
they can't hear you or they can't hear me?
They can hear you fine. They can't hear
They can
me.
hear me fine. Okay.
The issue is that so I've got the SM7B and it's plugged into a cloud lifter, but the cloud lifter, which normally bumps up the gain, has broken, and so
Uh-oh.
I have no idea what the hell is going on with it. Oh, is this much better? Perfect. Okay, we're fine. People are saying this is better. I
Cool.
guess I just have to speak a little bit loudly, but that's fine. So yes, I just like there's so much stuff I want to talk to you about. Let's start with the blog. So
Cool.
I want to make my blog more legit. And I, I often look at yours as an example of what a good kind of blog looks like. And you did this really good blog post a few weeks ago called "How to Start a Blog That Changes Your Life." And so there were a few bits from that I just wanted to ask you about. But would you be all right to just kind of give a quick overview of your blog and how successful it is for the people who haven't come across it?
Yeah, so let's see. I started my blog, which is just at natalison.com, back in fall of 2014. And the backstory on it is I was a philosophy major in college.
Hmm.
I had started doing I knew that I wanted to go into something entrepreneurial. I'd started a startup my junior year and taken a year off of school. That kind of like fell apart. And I knew I wanted to, I figured like a good way into work out of college would be to get good at content marketing because I
Hmm.
was already a decent writer from studying philosophy and I was interested in marketing. So I figured an easy way to get into marketing would be via content. So I started the blog as kind of like a case study that I could write and market a site. And just started really like writing about whatever was interesting to me and posting some stuff out there and seeing what would hit. And the first really popular article I had was this one on doing a 5 day water fast. And this is back in 2015 before like fasting was cool, before it was something people were talking about.
Yeah.
And it it went like a tiny bit viral on Reddit, but then it started ranking on Google for like 5 day water fast and water fast health benefits and some terms like that. And I think it still ranks for some of them. I haven't checked in a while, but it did that without me like knowing anything about SEO. And that kind of made me really interested in that whole marketing channel. That's like what my agency does now. But then it sort of showed me the power of like just writing and publishing things online and seeing what hits and what doesn't and working on it over time. And so kept doing that. And now 6 years later, the site does, It kind of depends on the month. It could be anywhere from like 300 to 600,000 monthly readers, and across like all the range of topics. Book notes are super popular. I published my notes from about 250 plus books on there, and those alone are at least 150, 200,000 visitors a month.
Okay.
Um, and then I've got like a weekly newsletter, which is sort of a weekly roundup called the Medley, which is where I publish most frequently. My actual blog publishing is super irregular. And kind of like whenever I like find time slash I'm sufficiently motivated to actually write a full piece. But yeah, the blog has been kind of like the jumping off point for everything else since then. It was the jumping off point for the agency work. It was kind of like a starting point for this tea company my wife and I are working on for 2 years called Cup and Leaf. It's kind of like led into tons of other cool opportunities. Most recently, all the stuff with Realms. So it's been this incredible like hub for all of my projects that has led in a lot of interesting directions.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear that because I've been hearing for years that this blog thing is like the way forward. And in 2016, after I read Show Your Work by Austin Kleon, that gave me the motivation and the right. Okay, I'm now going to get over my fear of putting myself out there and start my personal blog. But in 2016, I wrote like 3 blog posts, and it was only really when I started my email newsletter in 2018 that I actually started doing things consistently. Because I think just having that thing of forcing yourself to write something at least once a week is a good way of kind of getting started initially.
Yeah, it's huge.
And everyone and everyone in the chat asking what's the blog URL. All of Nat's URLs and links and stuff are in the video description. So just click the little down arrow and you'll find the blog.
Yeah, put that.
Okay, so your blog has sort of become I guess for you the blog is kind of like the YouTube channel is for me in that it started off as like my own content hub, and now it's just unlocked like zillions of different opportunities and different lines of revenue and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you want to try and grow a YouTube channel. I want to try and grow my blog.
I know, that's why this
Yeah,
is perfect.
this is fantastic. Okay, so let me mine your brain for some insights in the first instance. I wonder if I can share my screen with you. Let's see if this works. I want Chrome. Start sharing. There we go. Okay, you should theoretically be able to see that.
Yep, I see it.
Awesome. And let's just make sure that other people can see as well. So we want me, you, not Angus, screen share, and let's show Chrome. Zooms out Windows. Oh God. How the hell do I do this?
You can see your screen fine.
Okay, yeah, I'm just making sure the people in the chat can also, in the stream can also see it. Let's show Google Chrome. Aha, there we go. We're sort of getting there. Okay, in theory, everyone in the stream should now be able to see my screen, as should you in like a sort of Chrome window that's sort of windowed. I wonder if you can just kind of, if we can just kind of talk through my site and like, it's sort of in the process of being redesigned, and I've used yours as a lot of inspiration to kind of figure out what to put on the homepage and stuff. But I wonder if you can just kind of share what are the principles that you found make your site particularly effective, because you have like a huge number of visitors every month, and you also run a sort of multi-million-dollar SEO agency. So I feel like you're the expert on the blog situation.
Yeah, the first thing that I'm going to say that is going to be the most annoying is, are you still on Ghost or have you moved off of it?
I'm still on Ghost.
Historically, I've had a very hard time getting Ghost sites to rank SEO wise.
Interesting.
Now, that opinion is like 2 years out of date, and I'd love to talk to the founder's name is John, right? Is it John Nolan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to John about this and like get his opinion on it, because I love everything they're doing. But the reason that I use Webflow for all of my sites personally, for a couple of reasons. One, I like how much customization you get while still having like pretty nice design. And I've also just seen that like the Webflow sites for personal blogs or smaller blogs, especially, like rank super quickly. So if your goal is SEO, then I know Webflow and WordPress works super well. I haven't retested Ghost recently, so like I'm not 100% sure like how effective it is in terms of rankability. Like Squarespace is pretty bad, so I usually tell people not to use Squarespace.
Okay.
And Wix is just awful. So like
Yeah.
I always say, just stay with Wix. But Ghost is sort of like an unknown quantity to me. So if it were like me starting a site today, I would probably use Webflow or WordPress.
Okay.
But I do want to look at Ghost again. But the biggest thing, and this is this is always a really frustrating answer for people, is like most of SEO is just writing very, very good articles for a very long time period
Okay.
about things that people are looking for. And it's always going to be super bimodal, right? So there's always going to be a lot of articles that get tons and tons of search traffic, and then most of your articles don't get very much. We could actually look at my analytics if you want to
Oh,
look at it.
yes. That would be interesting. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, of course. One sec. Let me just, I'm going to bring it up before I share my screen because I've
Sure.
also got like tons of client data and stuff in here that I don't want to broadcast.
Yeah, of course. And I will set up the scene in the meantime. So let's see.
All right, cool. I have to go grant Mac permissions. One sec. All right, there we go. All right, let's see if it lets me do this. All right. Am I sharing? Can you see that?
Yes, I see it. I'm just setting it up on the stream now. Okay, so how do we do this? Let's get rid of me and let's swap cameras. Ah, perfect.
Cool.
This looks good. So we
Yeah,
see
so
your screen and
I'll
you're in a
actually-
little corner in the middle, in the bottom.
Wonderful. Let me go back to the homepage because I want to show this to people because this is always kind of interesting. So let's go back to 2014 to now.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like an interesting look at what SEO traffic over time looks like.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, what happened last week?
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that later. So I almost never look at my analytics anymore. I just publish and wait. But
Yeah.
you can see this is kind of like the growth over time, right? We're the first year and stuff, there's very little traffic, and then it goes up 2016, 2017, and then it kind of goes down for a while, and then it goes back up, and then it dropped by about half.
Yeah.
And this is when I migrated my site from WordPress to Webflow. So migrating your site will destroy your traffic for a while. It's just kind of like a unfortunate thing with Google. They really don't like it when you change everything at once. So when you change everything, you kind of like take a hit, but then went up, and it was at its basically highest of all time earlier this year, and then like updates happened with Google, and so went back down. But like this is all super normal, right? Like it goes up, goes down a little bit, goes up again, goes down a little bit. I don't know what happened last week, but this is like overall traffic growth over time. But it's also super concentrated in different pages. So if we like go look at all the landing pages, I've got a few articles related to like men's sexual health that are still like the most popular in terms of SEO traffic, which just makes sense because people are always searching that. Yeah. But then you can see like some of the book notes here, like 48 Laws of Power, 12 Rules for Life. Robert Greene's book, Art of Seduction, is also super popular. The water fasting articles up here. But it's funny because I don't always recommend that people focus on SEO because like here's Rome and here's Life You Want. I don't always recommend people focus on SEO because just because you're getting a ton of readers, you're not actually building an audience, right? So you can get tons of visitors, and if you have a way to monetize those visitors, it's phenomenal because SEO traffic for a blog is like one of the best ways to monetize your traffic. But it's not great for building an audience, right? Because a lot of these people, somebody who's Googling, right, like stop using shampoo. So if they Google that and then, right, like I'm the first one that comes up here. And so they click on that and then they read this article about not using shampoo anymore. But then they're probably just going to like leave this article and they're not going to like remember my name. They're not going to subscribe. They're not going to like do anything. So it's good as like super high level. And if you have a way to turn it into like product revenue, but it's not always great for building an audience. So I don't even necessarily recommend optimizing over it too much. Like you more want to optimize around stuff that is going to help you build that audience. So like if we think about other articles on here, I mean, the Rome article I think is a really good example of this, of one that just did super well for audience
Yeah.
building and like involving myself in that community. Let's see other ones here. Um, Soil and digital marketing. Like I like this article a lot. Will this work? Because this is basically like how I taught myself some marketing stuff early on to
Okay.
like get my first job.
Mm.
And this is one where there's not like huge search volume for it, but it's really valuable from like building a name in the marketing community and being a useful part of that community. So the way I think about like SEO for a personal blog now
Yeah.
is to write about the things you want to write about and then apply the SEO afterwards. So don't like go to Ahrefs or whatever and
Yeah.
download a ton of keywords and be like,
Okay.
oh, I'm going to write about this topic, even though I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Think like, what do I want to write about? And then how do I apply an SEO layer on top of that in order to like get more long-term value out of it. So if we're looking
Okay.
at like recent articles, um, like this would be a good one. This is something I wanted to write about anyway.
Mm.
But then the question was like, all right, how would I add a little bit of like tweaks to it to make it more friendly to people searching like eating meat while protecting the environment or things like that? Or, this one was kind of a challenge in that sense too, because, and this is the article that you were talking about, right? The blog changes your life. I deliberately did not optimize this for SEO because if you look at like how to start a blog
Oh,
articles,
yeah. It's going to be like very basic. Yeah.
super basic, right? It's like, oh, sign up for Bluehost and do all this
Yeah.
stuff. Like those ones are just always going to be the ones that rank at the top. So I knew that it didn't make sense to
Oh,
like
good old
over
Neil
optimize.
Patel.
Don't get me started. So there's like a balance with it. The
Okay.
only area where I do kind of like really like having the SEO is on the book notes, because here, if we go back to content drill down and we look at it, interesting. Yeah. So of the 22 million views in the last page views in the last 5 years, a bit over 10% of them are going to notes. And that's actually a higher percentage now because, yeah, you can see it only
Oh,
really
yeah.
started in 2018. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's like,
So with the
go
book
ahead.
notes, when you say you write the content first and then you sort of think about the SEO, like what does that involve? Because like my sort of very basic understanding of SEO is that long form content matters, keyword stacking doesn't matter so much. Like what's like the 2020 view of how to sprinkle SEO into, for example, I'm going to start writing. I've started writing book notes, and I'm planning to convert my YouTube videos into blog posts because a lot of
Yeah.
those would be fairly long form. How do I sprinkle SEO into the article?
You want me to tell you how to SEO your book notes so you can compete with mine? No, I mean, there's only so much you can do with the book notes, unfortunately. So,
Okay.
one thing that I will always look at is Ahrefs is like my go-to tool for pretty much any SEO stuff.
Okay.
So if we were going to do a book, like I know you've got the James Clear
Atomic
book,
Habits.
Atomic Habits, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just like plug that in, and then I would kind of see like, all right, all of the Atomic Habits keywords, right? Like, what do these look like? Um, and the first thing I would wonder is, does it even make sense to optimize around this? And in this case, it really does, because it's got this like 800 volume per month, which is a decent number of people. And so, I would probably, I would set the title around this keyword, right? Atomic Habits summary.
Okay.
Because if we Google like Atomic Habits,
Oh, it's my
it's
video.
probably, oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, there you are. Right. So, when we search this, it's mostly going to be like Amazon links and
Yeah.
probably James Clear's stuff that comes up. It's going to be a while before like a blog pops up. You might get
For
one. I
sure.
mean, I think that if we Google like just 48 laws of power without the summary keyword, I think I come up pretty high. Yeah, so I'm right
Oh,
here. I'm right below
nice.
Wikipedia, right? Which
Okay.
is like awesome. That's why that one gets so much traffic. But if we look at like Atomic Habits summary, right? So it's immediately book summaries up, and there's mine, right? So you've cut out all of the Amazon links,
Yeah.
And even some of his stuff. I mean, James Clear isn't here, right?
Mm.
It's like Sam Thomas Davies
Yeah.
and
Formative books and yeah.
Nicholas and Medium, right? So you could, what I would do is like the way I structure all of mine pretty much is title, author, and then summary and notes. And that's worked pretty well as like a structure for designing the page. And I can actually show you what that looks like on the Webflow side. It'll look the same in Ghost or WordPress or whatever.
Sure.
But what I pretty much always do, since I put up a decent number of these, is I'll use I'll use the template style first. So
Yeah.
I'll make all of them, you know, uh, title with or without author, and then summary or notes, usually depending on how long it is.
Yeah.
So like Sacred Cows, probably just Sacred Cow summary and notes, right? And I'll start with that. And then if it seems like it's something that's getting a ton of search volume that I want to play with, I might go back and tweak it later. You're able to sprinkle in a lot more SEO when it comes to actual like articles.
Okay.
Because I mean, you wouldn't want to change your notes from the book in order to fit like SEO guidelines, sure, right? But within an article, you could decide what to include and what not to include. So let's just see what's a good one here that's like, I actually don't know the last time I did like serious SEO on an article on my personal site, just because. Okay, so I know I did for the How to Make Passive Income one. So this is just another article, kind of like about exactly what it sounds like, how to make passive income. And kind of like the start a blog article, I didn't want to over optimize it because again, it would just be like a super short and less useful piece.
Yeah.
But there were some ways to like get some ideas about what I should definitely include. So the 80/20 for how to do this, if you don't want to pay, we pay like a few grand a month for SEO tools at Growth Machine, right? So I have like a slight competitive advantage in that sense. It doesn't make sense for most people to pay that much for tools, but you can hack it a bit. So you can do like passive income guide or something like that. And what I would probably do is I wouldn't open like a Forbes article because it's not going to be very good. And I wouldn't open one that's got like 28 ideas. It's going to be like a stupid listicle. But like this one stands out. This one up here stands out. Am I not on the first page for this? That's too bad. This is a tough keyword, so it's fine. But I'd open up a couple of these. This one's good. There I am, second page. Okay, I'll take it. Right, so like these ones that seem like they're in the ultimate guide sphere that are hopefully going to be more dense. And what I'll usually do is I'll kind of like scroll through and look at the headings. And so I'll say like, what in these headings do I want to include, right? So, okay, maybe talking about, some investing, that could be one section, right? So they've got like 5 H2s for investing. I would probably just put it under one section, but I'd write all these down and say like, all right, investing should definitely be a section, right? Like selling your own products, that was already going to be a section, but it could definitely include that. Okay, like renting things is kind of interesting, right? I don't do it personally, so I'd have a hard time talking about it, but like I could include that, right? And so what I would probably do is I would have this open in the browser, and then I'd be over here in my Roam database, and I'd be like, all right, how to make passive income notes, and then I'd be in here, and just as we go, I'd be like, all right, so building an online business, renting things. And if I wanted to like make sure I knew where this came from, I'd probably, go through here. And this would just give me some initial material for an outline. I wouldn't be like copying any of their content, obviously. It would just be like reminders of what to include because especially if a section is showing up in like all of these articles, that's a good sign that Google wants you to include it as well.
Yeah.
So these like intros are probably not that important because that's just like, priming the reader.
Yeah.
But we can look down here. We could say, okay, like digital goods, that's obviously got to be included. Actual products, real estate, physical assets, like that seems like we got to include it. Traditional investments, right? Some of these things are overlapping in all of these articles. And so my question would be, all right, of these things that overlap between each article, I should probably include most of those that I can actually talk about.
Yep.
And then I need to think about what are they not talking about that I should include, right? Okay. because that's where you can start to get a competitive advantage.
Hmm.
Like just including the same stuff that the other ones on the front page are including will get you like to their level, but then to beat them, you need to add something on top. So you need to either like add more value, you need to make it easier to digest, you need to add like better graphics, you need to find some way to make like the thing you're writing like both cover their ground and go beyond it. And that's sort of like the easiest way to, or that's like the basic way to hack it. There's more you can do. So what I might do is I would go to Ahrefs and do like passive income. And you can do this in SEMrush and Mangools and other SEO tools as well. But I would plug in passive income and then I would say like, what do those pages also rank for? And this is going to
And
tell me.
what does also rank for mean?
It just means that any page that ranks for the term passive income also ranks for all of these
Oh,
other
I
terms.
see. Okay.
So I bet if we dig down a bit, yeah, so like stocks to invest in, that's probably a good thing to include. Like selling stuff on Etsy and online platforms, like that'd be good to include. Like Fundrise and real estate investing, that'd be good to include, right? Like this is really great for coming up with ideas that
Yeah.
are going to be rewarded. Um,
And I guess
and
this sort of system, because I think I dabbled with the like 7 day trial of Ahrefs, and I was thinking at one point that this would be good for generating ideas for YouTube videos, but
yeah,
like this is kind of really inspiring me to kind of next level because I think I only dabbled with it for like half an hour, and then I was just like, okay, well, I've got enough ideas in my in my Notion database. I don't need more, but certainly things like
Airx is a beast of a
yeah,
tool. It's like, and it's definitely kind of intimidating. It takes a while to fully get comfortable with it, but yeah, once you do, it's pretty powerful. And they actually have a YouTube stats engine now as well,
oh,
so
okay,
you can see like everything. You know, if we plug in passive income on YouTube, uh, it doesn't have also rank for, but it does have like all keyword ideas, and we can see like how much they're getting searched and their click rate and everything on YouTube, which is super nifty.
oh, that's so handy. And so, for example, if I if I need ideas about, I don't know, iPad Air 2020 content, I can just stick iPad Air 2020 into Ahrefs, and it might potentially give me some ideas. Let's have a look.
Not a ton, but let's just
Okay,
try
or just like
iPad
iPad
Air.
Air, yeah. iPad Air is the
Yeah,
iPad Pro that makes a
Air
good
versus
video. Yeah,
Pro. Yeah, screen and battery
Yeah,
replacement
iPad
versus
Pro versus
MacBook
MacBook Air.
Air.
Yeah,
Like
I've got one of those
that's
videos.
actually that's a question I have, right? Because it's like, oh, should I, just be using an
Oh,
iPad for some stuff?
yeah, I've got a
Like,
video called exactly that.
there you go,
I
right?
think.
So it's kind of fun for
Sick.
coming up with ideas. Although,
Okay.
I mean, like you, the thing I'm short on is time and execution,
Yeah,
not
not
ideas.
ideas. Yeah.
So sometimes it's bad. But I do like to use some searches like this for filling out sub bullets in articles that I really want to make super SEO friendly.
Okay.
Um, last thing I'll throw out there, if you really wanted to like get crazy,
Mm.
is there's this tool called ClearScope, which is just ClearScope.io.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. Well, I can't show you the homepage, but if you go to ClearScope.io, it basically like it will do what we just did, but kind of like help. Um, it'll help you figure out like what should be included without you having to go to all of those pages and do it yourself. So it basically scrapes the first 10 or 20 results on Google for the keyword you're interested in,
Yeah.
and then it figures out all of the terms that show up in all of those articles and how often they show up, and then rates the importance of those terms on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
And then that gives you a ton of ideas for like topics to
Oh,
include in the
that's handy.
post that's being rewarded by Google. And it can even like suggest things to include in headings, right? So you can see this like heading presence is like really useful for figuring out what you might want to structure your headings around. There's limits to just using this, obviously, because all this will do is, or what this will do is it'll help you get to the level of the stuff that's ranking well right now, but you have
Sure.
to go beyond it.
Okay.
But it's a really good starting point if you want to save some time doing the research for
Okay.
getting all those terms.
And I guess kind of your competitive advantage partly is that because this starts at $350 a month. I've just looked at the pricing page, and so people who are kind of just dabbling with their personal sites certainly wouldn't be using a tool like this, but you can use it then for all of your stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Solid. Um, so on a somewhat related note, within your article about how to build a blog that changes your life,
Yeah.
I noticed a few weeks before you published that you posted on Twitter saying that you were unsure about whether to share the real numbers, And
Yeah.
I'm always a kind of a fan of sharing real numbers, but I wonder what was your thought process to become okay with that, because it's always seen as a bit controversial.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the main reason I was somewhat uncomfortable with it was just how much money the Rome course had made.
Yeah.
And I like there was basically no way to include it in the post without it coming off as braggy.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I try to do is like talk about all of this work stuff very plainly
Mm.
without pretending to be some sort of like ultra successful crazy hustler like mega entrepreneur. Like I just really hate that personality type.
Okay.
And I never want to be seen as somebody who's like super full of themselves and being super braggy in their content. And so that was kind of the struggle I was going through. Was like, all right, the Rome course, when I published this, had already made like 250 grand or
Yeah.
something. And I was just like, there's literally no way for me to put this in here without it being
Yeah.
like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So, which
That's
is
literally
basically
what you
my
said, isn't it?
reaction.
Like, I think you said, yeah, it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Words to that effect. And when I read that, I was like, yeah, that's the only
Yeah.
reaction you can have.
Right. Because I was just like, I mean, for context, when I originally made the course, I was
Yeah.
like, this will make like 10, 15 grand over a few months or whatever. And it'll just be like a fun little side thing. And
Mm.
I had no idea like what it was going to turn into. So I wanted to like try to find a way to put that in here, I guess, like humbly enough
Yeah.
without like not sharing it, because I do think it also shows that, I mean, you can see the chart here, right? It's like the site basically never made more than 10 grand per month for like 3 years or for 2 years. And then it was like, this is the product that has like significantly changed that.
Yeah.
And so I think that in this sense, it's actually kind of helpful, because if somebody's just starting their site, I mean, I technically started it in 2014, right? So for the first 5 years, it made, max 10 grand a month, which is
Yeah.
still great
That's
money,
still, yeah, pretty good.
but
But
it's not, 50 grand a month.
yeah.
And so I did want to highlight that it was like, sometimes you just keep doing these projects for a long time, and then eventually you find a product that's a hit, and
Mm.
things can change kind of overnight. Uh, and that's kind of what I've liked about the site in general. It's like Growth Machine's that way too, where I was just doing SEO on this site and talking about it in blog posts.
Yeah.
And then one company reached out and was like, hey, can you help us with our SEO? And I just like made up a number, and they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds good.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. So there is like this very like spiky, sudden
Mm.
realization effect that can happen in building a site over time. And I'm sure you've seen this with your YouTube channel, right?
Oh god,
Where
yeah.
it's like,
Like absolute crickets for the first like 2 years, and then suddenly things start, yeah, exponentially grow up.
yeah. So sometimes you just got to be patient, keep trying stuff and see what hits.
We've got a question from the chat. Does AdSense still have a place on a blog?
If you want, I don't,
Mm.
because I mean, I love how clean
Mm.
my blog
Yeah, it's
is,
very
right?
nice.
I love that it's like you just go on and you read, and there are no pop-ups, there's no ads, it's just reading. And I could put some AdSense on it and make maybe a few grand a month.
Mm.
But I mean, one, I talk about like sex and doing LSD and stuff
Yeah.
like that on the blogs, so AdSense doesn't love that.
Yeah.
And I reached out to some of the like more higher profile advertising
Mm.
agencies, whatever, and they all like rejected me just because of site content, which is
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
Like I get it; they've got advertisers they're beholden to. But also, it's just like you're never going to make 50 grand in a month off AdSense unless you've got an insanely massive, overly SEO'd blog. And I don't like how AdSense encourages you to optimize for like more shorter clickbaity posts over, what I wanted to write for this one, which is like I don't know, 6,000 word, like in-depth article talking about it. So AdSense is really good for certain types of blogs. It's just not what I feel like makes the most sense for this one.
Okay. Fair dues. And yeah, a few people in the chat saying who seem to have just joined that if you don't use AdSense, how do you generate an income? And I guess, you should check out Nat's passive income article. Also, this article on nateliason.com/start a blog. That
Yeah.
gives you all of the information about all of the different ways of monetizing a blog other than sticking ads on it.
Yeah. I mean, the main ones are the Rome course is huge. The book notes are actually pretty significant. Those are like 1.5 to 2 grand a month
Hmm.
at this point, which is like great. Affiliate programs are awesome. Like the Webflow affiliate program, super strong. The Athletic Greens, Teachable, like all of those. I've got an iPhone app that does well. I do some ads in my newsletter,
Yeah.
but that's actually really tricky because I'm so selective with who I will let advertise in it that it's very irregular. So it's like not a great solution. The products and the products and then the affiliate programs are by far the best.
Okay. Final question on the blog front. Is it the case that the longer the better in terms of post length?
My philosophy on it is that the post should be long enough to like answer the question or solve the problem
Okay.
and no longer. So I have an article. I don't know if it still pops up, but like, or here, get rid of. Do I still rank with this? Let me try one more. I wrote this like 5 years ago, so I don't know if it. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so
Nice.
this was like this was me atoning for my sins because
Yep.
I used to work at a company that like made everyone install email pop-ups.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. I installed one because of that company.
yeah, so I ended up really not liking that I kind of like polluted the internet, and so I
Yeah.
wrote this article later. I was like, here's how to like make sure that these don't show up for you.
Okay.
And you can see this is a
Oh,
200
that's
word
pretty
article.
short, but I guess it answers the question, and so.
Exactly. It solves the
Ah.
problem, so it shows up basically at the top. But then if we look at like my Rome article, this is
Yeah, it's
three
huge.
or
Yeah.
super long. There's tons of images, whatever. But if we Google like Rome research, it's somewhere on the first page. It moves around a lot, right? Keep productive, me, yeah. So it's like that's the one that's solving like that question. So the thing that I always say is like, it should be long enough to solve the problem, but not you shouldn't like make it longer just for the sake of it being longer. Uh, the only exception to this, and I don't think you're doing recipes, but if you ever
Yeah.
write recipe content, you do have to make it longer for the sake of being longer if you
Oh,
want it to rank. Yeah,
interesting.
so this
Okay.
is this is my current internet blogging sin I'll have to atone for eventually. But if you write a recipe site, or if you're looking for recipes online and you land on a site and there's a 800-word story about how the author's parents grew up like cooking them amazing like Persian cuisine and it was like incredibly tasty and it
Hmm.
reminds them of home and all of that, and you're like, what the hell, just show me the recipe. If they don't include that, their recipe will not rank on Google. They
Oh,
can't
okay.
just like have the recipe there.
Right.
So that's why you always see all of that nonsense, and I would love it if Google didn't reward doing that,
Yeah.
but it does. So that's what you
Okay.
got to do to rank.
So if we have a look at my website, we've got your screen share on. So if you just go on aliabdal.com.
Yeah, we could do that too.
Um, so what do you think about sidebar? Because your one doesn't have a sidebar, but I was thinking, well, I've got courses, I've got an email newsletter. If we just kind of pick our, so if we go tools and tech at the top, that was like, or any of these ones, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Do
just
you
seeing
think?
if it
Yeah.
persisted with articles. Um, I mean, what I would do for you,
Mm,
the reason I don't have a sidebar is that when I was doing a lot of like conversion rate testing and stuff
yeah.
for a couple of companies, basically nobody ever clicked it. It just was never used.
Okay.
And because I think people just kind of have sidebar blindness, like they assume there's going to be ads over there and
Yeah.
whatnot, so they just don't look at it. They just
Okay.
look at the article. Um, and so I took it away because I liked having the centered reading experience.
Mm,
If you're going to keep it though, I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping it, and it's nice that you've got this Sunday snippets call out. I would have it
oh,
the
okay. Yeah.
follow as you scroll. I'm sure there's a way you can do this in Ghost, but if we look at demand curve,
Yeah.
um, they they do a really nice job of this. So read and you start scrolling, right? It just like
Oh,
hangs
that's
out
nice.
right here.
That's
It's
really nice.
so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's very easy to do in Webflow, but
Yeah.
uh, I'm sure there's a way to do it in Ghost. It's not like a crazy
Yeah.
JavaScript or
It'll
anything.
be
So
pretty
doing
straightforward.
something like that, I would definitely do it because like what you want is for them to have something to do when they get to the bottom.
Yeah.
So when they get to the bottom of yours, yeah, you've got like videos and stuff, but they might also want to read other posts or sign up for
Mm.
the newsletter. Interesting that you call it the Alia Bill
Oh
newsletter
yeah,
then.
the the website is very much still under development, so
No,
all of the bits of it are
but it's
broken,
funny,
and yeah,
like
working on it.
having somebody do something like this, like go through and ask questions about why stuff is certain ways.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that are broken on my site that I just have no idea
Oh god,
are
that's very
broken.
broken. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty broken too, right? But it's like it's
It's so
I don't know
broken.
about you.
My god.
I mean, I never look at my site like this, right? And so I'm looking at it right now and I'm
Yeah.
going, okay, why are the social icons shadowed on their background? Like that CSS is clearly broken. Like I need
Mm.
to go fix that later, right? It's messed up over here. Uh, so it's kind of fun to do this, but yeah, I don't have strong opinions on sidebar. What I would say you don't want is like tons of ads over here because it's
Okay.
just going
Yeah.
to pollute the experience. But I mean, I think it's totally fine. I don't love
Yeah. It's a
like
bit.
you've got two
It's a bit busy.
bars,
Yeah.
same things,
Yeah, because
right?
I was thinking. I was thinking of paring down the second bar so that it fits on kind of one screen for the things like
Oh,
productivity, studying, tech. But I don't know. Like this is one thing
it's
that
like
I've been thinking about a
oh,
lot,
sorry.
and I'm just not
Okay.
sure. And the plan is that I'm going to make custom landing pages for each of the sort of categories. So, for example, productivity, studying, entrepreneurship, writing, reading, and just kind of leave it at 6 or 7, kind of like what James Clear does. So if you go on jamesclear.com,
Wait, what just happened? How did I?
you clicked on, oh, there's a weird link. If you go alibdal.com/productivity, it redirects to my Skillshare class,
Ah,
or it should do anyway.
there you are.
Oh, there I am, the Ken Burns effect. But I need to change that because a note to self, change Skillshare class link.
No, I mean, like this is even with a couple little broken things, like this is a really, really nicely designed site, right? Like super minimalist, all of the like spacing is a lot cleaner than mine. Like
Oh
the
yeah, so
fonts and the
I
effects and
spent
stuff
ages
is,
on the spacing, like I saw like 3 hours on a Twitch live stream, being like, right, what's the perfect spacing?
dude,
I
it's
th-
amazing how much of a difference that makes.
I think in between the excerpt and physical, it's a bit too much. I
Yeah,
want to have a
it's
bit of
spacing.
text over there, but yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. Which is like I can do this stuff for hours, right? Just like looking at a site, being
yeah, be
like, all
like,
right, what
yeah, how did
happens
they?
if we,
Yeah,
like reduce the margin by, whatever,
yeah.
right? Like,
It's always fun to do, and it's amazing just how much of a difference just a little bit of extra spacing makes to absolutely everything on a site.
yeah, it's huge. Um, so I always have to like stop myself. But yeah, I mean, I would. This
Hmm.
feels like really noisy to me,
Okay.
and because if you go to articles, is there also a way to filter down? Okay, so go to
Yeah,
like
it's just a
this.
generic tags page. Again, articles is going to be a sort of custom landing page. Again, kind of like how James Clear does it. I'm basically going to rip him off.
It's funny because my site is also ripped off on James Clear's old site.
Oh, no
So
way.
he redesigned it like that. But I mean, look at his site, right? So this is
Yeah,
what his
it's
site looks
so bare
like. And
bones
then,
and yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like exactly the same. I basically copied it because he just had it so clean. And like his is based off of a really popular free WordPress theme called Independent Publisher,
Oh, okay, yeah.
right? So it's like everyone's getting their stuff from somewhere. But
Yeah.
I mean, what I like about his is just that there's very few things up here,
Yeah.
right? It's like you've only got a few spots to go to, so it's not overwhelming.
Mm.
So I try to do that too, right? Where it's like
Yeah, good point.
notes, brain, newsletter. I'm actually going to get rid of support because nobody goes here.
Yeah, like who would click on I don't think I've ever clicked on that link.
No, I mean, we can even
Yeah.
go look at it, right? So if we look at, yeah, over the last week, 46 people went there, right? Like
Yeah,
nobody
fine.
goes there.
No one clicks
So
on it, yeah.
yeah, I'll get rid of that and put something else. But I like having it really minimalist. I mean, I don't even have a link to go back to the homepage. You'll notice,
Yeah.
because I assume there's not really any reason people would go there, and then I just do all my categories here. But that's also just me, right? Like it's not. I haven't done tons of testing or whatever on this, and like know that this is the best solution.
Yeah.
This is just what I wanted on my site, mostly because the really busy sites and the really spammy sites come off as like kind of fake and shady to me.
Yeah.
And yours doesn't come off that way. So I feel like the way you're doing it is really great too.
Okay. Yeah, just a constant work in progress, and then I guess I just gotta plug away writing blog posts for the next few years.
Yeah. But
Um,
but reusing YouTube videos as blog posts is like a phenomenal strategy. It can
oh,
work super well.
okay.
And the reason it's so great is what you'll actually have happen is so basically um, what you'll have happen is your video and your article will show up here. So you'll kind of have a chance to get two spots for the price of one,
Okay.
because it's interesting how it doesn't the video doesn't show up when I'm on my normal search.
Hmm.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Or no, you're not
Oh
here
no,
now.
I'm not there
It's
anymore.
so strange. Anyway, you'll get the article and you'll get the video. So pretty much for every client of ours that has a YouTube, we tend to recommend like just letting us have a writer go in and turn their videos into articles that are going after the same keywords. They can get like the 1-2 rating or the 1-2 ranking.
Yeah.
And it works super well because then, so like I'll probably, I might do an Atomic Habits video at some point.
Yeah.
And when I do, I'm going to put that video like right here,
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. That was my
because
plan as
then
well.
yeah. Because then when somebody shows up, if they'd rather watch it, they can watch it. And then on the video, I would maybe put a call out towards the beginning of the video or just in the description saying, if you'd rather read these notes, like you can click here. Because then they kind of like feed off of each other. So especially if you've got a video that's getting tons of views, you can
Hmm.
turn that into views on your blog. And the more views on your blog you're getting for that article, the higher it's going to rank. And they just kind of like, you get this really nice virtuous cycle effect.
Oh, dreamy. Have you
Yeah.
got any growth machine clients who are personal blogs rather than like brands?
Nah, it's too expensive. Because like for most of
Yeah.
our content projects usually are like minimum 5 to 6K a month,
Yeah.
and they go up to like, I mean, we have had people doing like over 50 grand a month in content.
Okay.
So it's just like it's hard to justify that for a personal blog. Maybe for people who were really crushing it on their personal site, so like a Tim Ferriss or somebody like
Hmm.
that, it would make sense, but not for most solo bloggers. We have some info sites where it goes super well, but we haven't actually. Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a solo blogger where it made sense for them to hire us to do stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Fair. I think I spoke to one of your guys about another business that I was doing about potentially content marketing. But yeah, it was super expensive because we were so early stage and didn't have much revenue.
We usually recommend this to people who want to like get help but can't
Okay.
afford a whole agency, where it's
Yeah.
just like, because like, so for Growth Machine we've got relationships with like 6,000 some writers across like basically every vertical imaginable.
Okay.
And so we have like a super robust process for finding writers for our clients, and we basically just use that process for other people when they want freelance writers, because
And
we can just like surf through
yeah.
our database and find for people.
And so, for example, so if I'm getting my own team to write up videos as blog posts, is it
Mhm.
would you suggest doing anything sort of similar SEO strategies like using Ahrefs and kind of just you know checking what keywords rank, or literally just a case
Yeah,
of converting the video and H2ing sort of the different headings?
a bit of both. I mean, it would be worth looking at what other details to include to make it more competitive SEO wise,
Okay.
as well as looking at like anything that you don't need, right? Because
Yeah.
the written, what's great for writing might, it's going to be different than what's great for video.
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking at some of the SEO metrics to figure out how you might like tweak it to make it really Google friendly, that could be worthwhile.
Okay. Awesome. Can we have a look at your room? Like, I'm curious as to how you track
Yeah,
ideas for things,
let's do it.
like content ideas for
Actually,
blog posts or whatever.
Because I've played around with this a lot, and this
Hmm.
is like the new system I've
Okay.
settled on,
Yeah.
which I love. So TI stands for topic ideas,
Okay. Yeah.
which is basically like whenever I've got something new that I might want to write about, I'll just write it down with this like hashtag TI.
Yeah.
So this one, like modern solutions for modern problems, came from a tweet thing I had today about like buying really expensive stuff
Oh,
to help me.
yes. I'm going to ask you about that at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, like, there were a few people who were responding, and they were like, "Well, why don't you just sleep?" Or like, "Oh, like I just, go to bed and close my eyes." And I'm like, "Yeah, but we live in this like crazy modern environment with all
Mm.
this unnatural light, and we're not outside, so it's not getting cold at night, and we're like pretty much all in polluted air to some degree. Like, you need modern solutions for all these like modern problems, right?" And so I was like, "Oh, that would be like a really good blog post or whatnot." So I'll just put it in the daily note and add this like hashtag TI. And then when I go to hashtag TI, I can see all of my linked references for it. And this is just a query for
Yeah.
everything that's
Oh,
TI
hashtag
and
TI.
IP.
Okay.
So IP is in progress.
Okay.
And then I've got this template here that autofills for each new TI. So I can actually show you how that works. If we've got this one,
Yep.
right? So I'm going to change this. Go into that. And then I'll just use my text expander, so XR TI, and then it fills all of that in.
Okay.
So TI and then NS is not started.
Okay.
And then, once I'm working on it, I change it to IP, and then it's gonna like have that yellow, and then when it's done, I can do done.
Oh, amazing. And so for each of these things, you're turning it into a Twitter thread, a blog post, a YouTube video, and Natcast?
That's
What's
the
that?
idea.
Is that a podcast?
Oh, that should say NatChat. I thought I
Yeah,
fixed that.
it said
Huh.
Natchat in the last one.
Yeah, I've been having some issues with text expander updating for that, but yeah, that should say NatChat. So because this is like one of my like things I've been thinking about more is reusing my ideas across multiple mediums
Yeah.
because I'll have an idea and I'll use it in one place, then I'll kind of forget about it and not
Yeah.
reuse it.
Mate, I have this problem like 100% of the time.
Yeah, and I'm
I've been
like
trying
I'm
to find
wasting
like a
so
yeah.
much energy. Like I need a good system for tracking this. So this is what I've come up with, which is basically like, all right, I've got this idea, and I took a bunch of notes in my Roam database, and you can see like here's all these items, the link, the costs, like the
Yeah.
description of whatever.
Yeah.
And then basically what I did to write the Twitter thread is I opened this in the sidebar
Yep.
and then went down here into the Twitter thread and just started like writing out the tweets based on the info over here, right? And so now that's done, and so that's marked as done, and now I could work on like the blog post or the YouTube video or whatever.
Oh wait, and so what? So Twitter thread is its own page,
Yeah. So
Okay.
the reason I
but it's
reason I
just
do
called
that,
Twitter thread. So how many got like a zillion pages called Twitter thread?
no, I've only got a few actually, because like Twitter thread in this context is Twitter threads that are like for topic ideas, right? So as I use this on more pages, eventually I could just go to Twitter thread and filter for all of them that are either like not started or in progress, right? So now I know like, oh, okay, I should go work on this Twitter thread. Or if I came here and I said like, what's a YouTube video I should work on? I could do that, and it's like, oh, this YouTube video I haven't started it yet, right? So this would give me like ideas for what to work on across different media
Okay.
instead of being like, here's all of my ideas. Now it's like, here are my ideas that I haven't used for a YouTube video or haven't used for a Nat chat or things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you're tracking the ideas like that because I kind of started doing that in Notion initially, and then just sort of just the schedule of publishing 3 videos a week just meant that my whole system ended up just getting out of whack, and I've just
Wow.
focused on the video thing. But that's really like a really good concept where you have the idea as like the central thing, and then you spin off video, tweet, blog post, podcast episode, like whatever from it, and then you can filter down to see where are the gaps in case you ever run out of
Exactly.
ideas.
Well, it's interesting. It's looking like my attribute is not working for some reason when I use the text expander. So I don't know why that would be. So I'll have to look into that, but that's okay.
Okay,
But
this is very
anyway, yeah.
Um,
So that's what I've been using now. But this is like, you can tell it's still sort of in progress. Like I'm
Yeah.
still ironing the kinks with it and stuff like that. But so far it's been working super well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things when you're like an early adopter to this sort of stuff, your system just evolves so often. And
Oh yeah, it changes
yeah.
so quickly. Like I'll get questions from people about stuff that I talked about related to Realm a month ago, and I'm just like, man, I don't even use a system close to that anymore. It's like it keeps evolving, and so I'm always stuck in this like back and forth of, okay, how
Yeah.
often do I update the material versus just like put it out on Twitter and then do a batch update every 3 to 6 months or something like that. But doing little things like this is always really helpful. And for me, it's helpful too because I get to keep tweaking with it, and then I only share it when I feel like I've really got a good system down.
Yeah. No, awesome. And so is Roam your like everything app, or do you use other stuff in your stack of sort of personal productivity things?
It's pretty much everything. I mean, let's see. So I'm using Roam a lot. I use Roam for everything personal, and then for Growth Machine, we use Notion and Asana for pretty much everything. Notion is just better for multiplayer,
Yeah.
and
That's the main reason I
uh,
use Notion for everything.
yeah. And my assistant and I use Notion for like SOP management,
Yeah.
but we do like most of the stuff in Rome as well. I'm trying to think like here, I'm just looking at my phone. In terms of productivity, I don't know
As in, so
what else.
if you have an idea and wanna capture it immediately, let's say you're out and about in town or something, do you use Roam to quick capture stuff as well, or do you have like an intermediate
I just use
place?
Quick Capture.
Okay.
I was using drafts for it,
Yeah.
but Quick Captures are fast now,
Okay.
and so I don't mind doing it that way at all. I'll occasionally, like if it's something longer, I might Slack myself or Slack it to Amanda, and she'll add it or something. But in most cases, I'm just using Quick Capture because it's pretty good.
Okay. Sweet. How long have you had an assistant for?
Amanda and I've been working together for 3-ish months now.
Oh, okay.
So that was like it, I tried on and off to hire someone for a
Hmm.
while, and like it honestly just hadn't worked well. Every other time I tried to hire someone for like a year and a half,
Yeah.
and then I worked with this company that Kay actually recommended called is greatassistant.com. Yeah, it's them.
Oh, okay.
And they did just like an incredible job. Amanda's amazing,
Hmm.
and I like literally could not do all of this stuff right now without her. So,
Okay.
and
Yeah, because
yeah,
I've been working with an assistant for the last 6 months or so. But it's her first time being an assistant, and it's my first time having an assistant. So I've been always sort of trying to figure out kind of workflows and strategies and stuff for working with an assistant. Is there anything that you found particularly helpful?
yeah, I'm going to turn off screen share for a
Sure.
second
Yeah. Let's
because I
switch over to.
turn that off for a second, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
bring up my Notion and just make sure there's nothing
Absolutely. I've taken it off the live.
super secret here. Um, if you can give me 1 second,
Yeah.
the
Sure.
air conditioning up here turned off. 1 sec.
Go for it. In the meantime, let's have a chat with the chat. I see there's some controversy about the fact that I don't reply to everyone's emails. I do apologize. I try and reply to everyone's emails, but it's physically impossible. um,
Thanks. We're in that weird period in Texas where it's either like 90 degrees or 60 degrees. So,
what does that mean
all right.
in Celsius? Because I really have no conception
Oh
of
gosh.
Fahrenheit in my head.
It's either so hot you're sweating or
Okay.
it's cool enough to wear a hoodie.
Okay, fine.
So from day to day. So today is hot enough to be sweating, and I didn't adjust the AC, so it's starting to get hot in here. But we're good now. Okay. Let me just make sure there's nothing
Yep, sure.
else. No, I think this is all pretty clean actually. All the like really personal stuff is in. Um, all right, cool. Can y'all see that?
Yes, we can see that.
So I just got this structured kind of like K's,
Yeah.
what is it? Supercharge your productivity in Notion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So K's got like this really great course. Have you gone through it as well, Ollie?
I haven't actually gone through this yet. It's on my list of things to watch.
It's a really nice system. And so he and I talked, and he helped me set this up. And we set one up for Growth Machine too, which is really fun because he hadn't done one for like a company before.
Okay.
But it's been incredible for organizing everything for
Yeah.
the Growth Machine team. But yeah, so Amanda and I use this, where it's basically like we've got reference notes. So she's like helping me find landscapers for my house in Austin, helping me find painters for the Airbnb property that my wife and I are working on, and like reaching out to them. And so recording everything in here. But then we've also got like SOPs for everything. So this is like how to edit an episode of Made You Think. And so basically what I'll do is I'll either like write something up kind of like this for her, or I'll just record a loom and send it to her, and then she'll like write up any notes that she has. But that's been just like really helpful for us to like organize everything in one place. And it's nice because like I did more of this early on. Now I'll usually just send over a loom video, and she'll pick it from there. So that's been crazy helpful. And then honestly, the other thing that's just worked really well for us is like I'm very fine with things getting messed up a little bit. So I was agonizing over handing over my email because I was like, oh, like, what if something gets missed or not responded to? But we just came up with like 3 or 4 really simple rules, and now she does like 95% of my email. I probably spend 5 to 10 minutes a day on email tops, which is incredible. And so that was really helpful. I'm trying to remember what the email rules were. It was like Uh, if it's a growth machine client, let me know and I'll respond. If it's somebody with a recommendation for something to read for the medley,
Mm.
like, stored in Rome. If it seems like somebody I have a personal relationship with, then go ahead and intro me. And if it's an action item, let me know. But for everything else, go ahead and try to find the best way to handle it or archive it. And if it's a really important thing that we shouldn't have archived,
Yeah.
they will follow up and then we'll know, right? So it's like it, it's perhaps a little bit inconsiderate to just be like, just bias towards archiving and then see, what comes back around. But it works. It's worked really well so far, especially since like the only things that are truly urgent are like the growth machine related things,
Yeah.
which she knows to pass on to me, or like stuff with my wife, or like anything where there would be multiple vectors of communication. Like there's almost nothing that can only come to me through email that
Yeah.
is dire. So I think being willing to just like experiment and make some mistakes along the way has been really, really helpful for us, like quickly moving on a lot of different processes.
Okay. Um, is she full-time assistant for you, or
Yeah, she's full time now.
okay? And presumably you started off kind of doing it a few hours a week and then went up to full-time, or
Yeah, we started off at like 20-ish, and then pretty quickly, I basically what so my thinking on this was, I said like just go ahead and bill us for full time, even if we don't use it, because
mm,
I want to have the pressure to
yeah,
like create more work and find more things that I could be delegating and working on with you.
yeah,
Uh, so we've got this like other project that had been on my back burner forever, which is like transferring my brain database in Evernote into Rome.
yeah,
So that's the thing she's working on now, is like taking a lot of my book notes and then eventually some of the like Monday newsletters and whatnot and moving those
yeah.
into a public Rome database that people could subscribe to, instead of having to have all of the notes in Evernote.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially because you're the Rome guy, and it just sort of benefits the virtuous cycle of everything to have your notes on Rome as well. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that was something that I early on when I was hiring my first employee for the YouTube stuff. At the time, I could just about afford, like, to pay someone a full-time salary. And I was speaking to a mentor of mine, and he said that, look, even if you think you don't have enough work right now, at the point when you start paying someone a full-time salary, trust me, you'll find work for them to do. And
Oh,
just like immediately, as soon as I hired Christian, suddenly the channel started to explode because suddenly there was all this stuff that, oh, we can make more courses, we can do more of this because now I don't have to do the editing anymore myself, for example.
it's huge. How much time were you spending on editing before that?
Oh God, I think probably about 15 to 20 hours a week, sometimes more.
Wow.
And so I'd come
So,
home from my job, and then I'd be editing for several hours each night, and
gosh.
ordering takeaway and repeating the process every day, basically.
So for a 10, 15-minute video, you think you do what, 2, 3 hours of editing?
Yeah,
Or
probably 4 or 5 hours, depending on the complexity of the video. If it's a just sit down and me chatting, then 2, 3 hours. If it's a bit more complicated, several more. But now I
so
don't
do
have
you
to
just
think about that.
you just record the raw and send it over, or do you do the A-roll cut, or
Yeah, so now I just record the raw, shove it in a Google Drive. I invested in fast internet and had some guy wire an Ethernet cable around my house so it could plug into my
yes.
laptop. So now Christian's based in Romania, which I didn't actually know when I first hired him. Like I put out a job posting on my website, and I expected to find someone in the UK, someone who I could meet up with once a week. But then he applied from Romania, and he was just better than everyone else. So I thought, let's go for it. And so
It's
Google
the
Drive,
future, man.
yeah, Google Drive upload to Romania, and then it feels like such a superpower when you have like a team, and I'm sure you have this feeling as well, where you can just kind of delegate something and it gets done, and it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's, especially it's like the only way that you scale pretty much anything,
Mm,
right? It's like everybody needs to be doing the things that they're best at, right? And it's like I know that I'm not the best at. It's like I originally did all the editing for Growth Machine clients, right? We
mm,
were publishing articles for them, and the second hire at Growth Machine was our first full-time editor, Heather, and she's just like an incredible editor, and is like so much better at it than I am,
mm,
and gets more joy from it than I do, and it's like such a better thing for everyone. And now she's like built out an editing team within Growth Machine, like all this. It's just like really cool to see see a process that was originally like just you doing everything
Yeah.
turn into like 5, 10, 20, whatever people like all doing the parts of it that they're best at and in many cases better than you at.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. There's something kind of magical about like company and process building like that.
Yeah, that's something that I've started to really start to enjoy. Because with my first business, which I set up in medical school, I think I did everything wrong in terms of fear of delegation and thinking, oh, I have to do this, and then getting overwhelmed with the amount of support emails I had to reply to and all this stuff. And then I read the E-Myth a few like last year, and suddenly I was
It's a
like, oh
great
my
book.
god, like my mind exploded, and suddenly I got excited about like building SOPs and making systems and processes for all of this stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
is there any other sort of resources slash books that you found helpful for the managing a team stuff? Because you've got like
Ooh.
12 employees now, is it, on Growth Machine?
Uh, Growth Machine, we're at 16.
16, solid.
So yeah, it's gotten large. And then we've got maybe 30 contractors as well.
Okay.
So it's rather large. There's a team management and like company building type stuff. eMyth is great. I'm going through my book notes
Nice.
because this is like it's the only way I remember what
It's
I've
your second
like
brain.
read. Yeah, it's a second brain, exactly. Effective Executive is great.
Ah, yes,
That's
I've heard good things
strong.
about that.
Um, uh, 0 to 1 is good on like a philosophical
Mm.
level. It's not super good on a practical level.
Yeah.
Um, what's the Andy Grove one? High Output Management is really good.
Oh, okay.
And then there's this company called Lighthouse,
Okay.
uh, run by Jason Ivanish, and they have a really, really good management blog. I think they've got the best blog on management that I've read. So you can just like go through a ton of their articles, and you'll learn a lot from them. Um,
Sweet. I'll be checking those out. Um,
uh, what was the last one? Is Ben Andreessen Horowitz. Ben Horowitz's book, Hard Thing About Hard Things, is very
ah,
good too.
that good as well. Okay. Hard thing. So I'll start by reading your book notes, and then I'll see if I need to get the books as well. Um, one thing I wanted to talk to you about. So I really enjoy. I think I first discovered your blog last year. I can't remember how, like, what the first thing I saw on it was, but you had a post about something along the lines of I built my 4 hour work week. Now what? And I was like,
Oh
oh my god, like this is like the place where I was approaching, because ever since 2017 when I was no not 20, ever since the age of 17 when I discovered the 4 hour work week, my whole thing has been gearing my life towards building up multiple sources of passive income to the point where being a doctor becomes optional. And now, I'm at the point where being a doctor is completely optional for me. And I've been thinking, I could do the nomad thing and like travel the world and stuff, lockdown permitting. And I don't know. I'm intrigued to speak to someone because it sounds like you did the travel-y nomad thing for a bit, and then you realized
Yeah.
that actually the thing that I enjoy is the sort of settling down, building a community, building my own cafe, hanging out with people in real life. So I wonder if you can just kind of riff on that a little bit.
Yeah. I have like strong and semi-unpopular opinions about this
Oh,
in some
wonderful.
cases,
Okay.
but no, I mean, so I was, I did the exact same thing. I think I also read it at like 17. So I would like read for our work week. I got, super interested in the whole entrepreneurship idea, got really into it in college, got out of college. My site started taking off more, like built my first product based off that. And for a while it was making like not a crazy amount of money, but it was like 3, 4, 5 grand a month.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, well, if I'm in Argentina or Thailand or a place like that, that's actually like a really comfortable amount.
Yeah.
And I could just like hang out and, I don't have to like work on stuff I don't want to work on and whatnot. And so I did it. I went to like Paris for a month, then I was around the East Coast of the US. I was in Argentina for 4 months.
Mm.
I was in SF for like 3 or 4 months after that. And yeah, I'd say like around when I was leaving Argentina, I was just, it made me, I realized that I was like, man, this is actually like not a great life, right? Like it, it's super attractive when you're going towards it, but then you kind of get there and it's kind of like a very hollow goal to hit, because if you don't have a plan for what you're going to do with that new time, you just kind of feel like bored and directionless. And I was kind of like, I was like surface dabbling in a number of things, and I felt like I needed to travel because I could,
Mm.
but the nomad life is like very lonely, right? You can't really have friends unless you're traveling with them, because when you get somewhere, you're not very motivated to like make friends with people because
Yeah.
you're going to leave them in 3 months,
Yeah.
right? So you can't really build deep relationships. And I the other thing I realized is like a lot of the people who are, like living on a beach in Thailand and Instagramming and blogging about like how awesome their life is being a digital nomad, it's
Mm.
like they're actually not making very much money,
Mm.
and they, aren't even necessarily very happy, but it's kind of like a projecting, like showing off type of thing. And if they could, afford to like live in Manhattan in the US, they would probably prefer to do that. But, it's so cheap to like live on the beach in
Yeah.
Thailand, and you like get tons of Instagram like cred for doing it,
Yeah.
then you can go do it. So it's like it's super alluring when you're not there, but then you get there and you're like, wow, this is kind of like empty and hollow. So I kind of like gave it up after, after I was in Argentina, and said like, no, I'd much rather kind of settle down somewhere. Uh, and tried out San Francisco for a few months, didn't like it very much, and then went to New York with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we were living there for a year, and then came back to Austin. And I've gotten like so far away from that where now I'm like, I never want to travel more than once a month.
Mm.
I pretty much only want to like I'd much rather, do a trip where I'm doing things with people I care about in a boring place than
Yeah.
go to like a super amazing place alone. Right. It's like I'd much rather be like stuck in the desert with five of my best friends and, do that than like go to Machu Picchu and get like the pictures on top of the mountain and whatnot. Right. It's just like it really changed how I thought about travel. And
Mm.
it, made me realize how important like community building was. And that's become a huge priority for Cosette and I, where it's like we're pretty much either like hosting a dinner or going to a dinner every night in Austin. It's like that's the number one thing we want to optimize around, is
Yeah.
like building a really, really cool community here, and like having a lot of people who are on similar like life trajectories as us. And a lot of them are kind of in the same camp where they're like, why would we leave? Like, where would we want to travel to? Like, it's so much better to just invest in building up a life here
Yeah.
rather than like invest in having, like a sick passport and like Instagram feed. Uh, so yeah, I don't know, I've become a lot more like hermity, for lack of a better word,
Okay.
where it's like, I think that, if somebody told me like, oh, you want to go on like a world trip next year for a month, it's like, even if it was like all expenses paid, I'd probably be like, not really, right? Like, it's like, it sounds really cool, but I think that if you can build a life that brings you joy every day, you don't pine for those like spurts of joy that come from traveling and things. Like the other analogy I really love here is getting a dog.
Mm.
So a lot of people will resist getting a dog because like, oh, then I can't like travel, then I can't like do
Yeah.
these things. And I'm like, yeah, but then you have a dog every day,
Yeah.
right? It's like you've got this like silly fluffy thing that is incredibly excited every single morning to see you for like no other reason than that you exist, right? Like it's the best feeling in the world, and you get that every day. And yeah, you've got to give up a couple weeks of travel, but like, wouldn't you rather have that? So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like kind of like an unhealthy obsession, the like need for maximum freedom and
Mm.
maximum like travelability, and like, oh, don't own things, don't like buy a house, don't like be in a serious relationship, don't get a dog, like
Yeah.
be free, like go travel the world, like do all of that. I just don't think it's like a good way to be happy. I think it's like it's super alluring to people who uh, just like want to maximize their optionality and don't
Mm.
want to actually commit to something, because it's like committing to something means giving up a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And that's scary it's scary for me too,
Mm.
right? Like, but I also know that if I just like pick something and commit to that, I'm going to be way happier in the long run. Um, so I don't know. That's like my rant
Oh,
on some
interesting.
of our work stuff. But I think that like the optionality trap is so powerful for a lot of young people,
Mm.
where it's like you just always want to maximize for options. Like I just want to have lots of options with, what I do with my time and who I hang out with and, who I date and what kind of work I do. And it's like, no, no, no. If you just like pick something and really, 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 really focus on that, it's going to make you way happier than getting, having a million options all the time.
Yeah, I think like this is a trap slash conundrum that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment, and struggle is like in air quotes because it's a very kind of first world problem to have. It's like at the moment I'm trying to figure out, do I want to potentially move to the US to complete my to sort of do my residency, which if I do it would involve kind of preparing for these long ass exams, and it's a whole like long process that takes 2 or 3 years to get there. Versus do I want to potentially, just set up shop in the UK and do fine with that, versus do I want to maybe go to Australia for a year because you can do emergency medicine stuff there, versus do I want to travel the world? And a big part of me wants to do the optionality thing because I'm thinking, well, at this point I'm young and relatively unencumbered right now. Like there seems to be no time like the present to do the travel the world thing if it weren't for the coronavirus. But when I really think about it, like why do I want to travel the world? I don't enjoy travel that much, but I kind of feel maybe I'm missing something because people say, oh my God, like travel is like the best thing ever and changes your life and stuff. But every time I've gone on a holiday, it's always been more about the people that I'm hanging out with than the destination. And in a way, I couldn't really care less about the destination. So I'm wondering if I am falling into the trap of, oh, I've got to travel the world just because I can, when in reality, I actually quite enjoy having my studio and having my base in Cambridge in the UK and visiting London occasionally and taking road trips to Scotland every now and then. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, I don't know, maybe this is a little harsh, but I think that a lot of people are day to day unhappy in their lives.
Yeah.
And so travel is a really amazing escape because it's like you get to turn off that unhappy job that you're stuck at most days of the week and you get to just like enjoy yourself for 2 weeks. And so travel gets this like huge allure because that's when you get to like really just enjoy your entire day. And if you're somebody who enjoys your work and enjoys your environment and enjoys what you're spending your time on day to day,
Yeah.
you don't need to like go somewhere else to have that feeling, right? And so the idea of like traveling just to escape for a little bit and like turn that work mind off, I think it is healthy, right? Because like we all have to turn off work. I'm really bad at that sometimes,
Yeah.
right? But I think that this idea that like, oh, traveling is like this incredible thing on its own, I don't think holds up if your day-to-day life is like super happy and fulfilling. Unless, I think that where it changes a little bit is if you have specific things you really want to travel for. So a good example would be like if you're an incredibly passionate photographer, right? And it's like, oh, I really want to go, take photos of the animals in Africa or whatever, right? Like doing those kinds of things. Or like that's what I think about travel a bit more as now too. It's like I want to go places for certain things, right? And so I think that's like, well, it's kind of different too, where it's like not just traveling because, oh, I want to like see this beautiful thing and like, get away for a little bit, but like, oh, I'm super passionate about coffee, so I want to go do like a tasting tour in Colombia or like something along those lines. But I don't know, like I wanted to ask you this. Are you gonna, you don't want to be a full-time creator?
I don't think I want to be a full-time creator. I I feel like if I were to do it full-time, it would be less fun. I also quite like medicine. Like, I'd quite happily go to the hospital 1 or 2 days a week, and that would be really fun because it's like a good community
Yeah.
vibe. You learn stuff, it's challenging, it's interesting, you get to help people, you get to see people directly. I also kind of worry that I've sort of tied my brand into being a doctor and also these other things. And I worry that, well, if I become a full-time creator in like 10 years time, will it still, like, I feel like I'll just be another productivity guru. Whereas if I'm a doctor, then I'll at least have that feather in my cap. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think you're clearly like a very smart and competent guy and like you know how to build an audience and like provide value through creating things. And so I wouldn't be worried at all that you would find something else to do over the next 5, 10 years, like that would segue into other interesting directions, right? It's like if you did exactly what you're doing now for 10 years, yeah,
Yeah.
I think you would, it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
But it's like, stuff changes when it's like when you started your YouTube channel, you were helping with like test prep, right?
Yeah, like just for medical students and stuff, and it just sort of transforms over time.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like it just keeps
Yeah.
transforming over time. The people who like fall off are the ones who like stay overly fixated on what they started with and
Mm,
like don't keep experimenting. But I also, I mean, I agree with you that sometimes it like I tried being a full-time writer and
mm,
I tried doing just that and it made me really unhappy. Like
yeah.
I enjoyed it more when it was like the thing that I squeezed in around the other things
Mm.
because then I had less time to agonize over like what I was writing and it was like a good forcing function. So, I definitely understand that. And it's kind of like, do you read Scott Alexander, like Slate Star Codex?
Oh, I've dabbled with some of it, but it's on my list to sort of actually dive deep into it because you like it's so dense. I feel like I really have to think every
Oh,
time I
it's
read
so
one of them. Yeah.
incredible though. Yeah. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
It's like that's his thing. He's a full-time psychiatrist and
Yeah.
then he like writes the blog in his evenings, right? So I totally get that too. Yeah, are there people who are doctors like 2, 3 days a week?
Oh
Like
yeah,
I don't think it's US, but
yeah, it's a very standard thing in the US as well.
oh,
You
it is. Okay.
part-time residency isn't a thing. So when you're sort of doing your 3 or 4 years of training, it's very full-time. But then after that, a big allure of the US medical lifestyle is that people say for every 1 day a week you work, you make 100 grand. So if you're working 3 days a week for a year, you're making 300 grand. 4 days a week,
Mhm.
400 grand. 5 days a week, 500 grand. And then it just sort of increases depending on how big a name you are and what region you're working in. So a lot of people go for the kind of lifestyle specialties like I don't know dermatology or emergency medicine or things like that that lend themselves very well to hey I'm going to work 2 days a week. I'll make my 200 grand. I'll kind of do my side hustles and enjoy life in the remainder of my time.
It's not a bad setup.
It's not a bad setup. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where I want to end up. Like part-time medicine. I also really enjoy like teaching and like medical education and stuff. And so
Oh, cool.
being good at that stuff and I sort of treat it as a performing art. That would be fun. And then just sort of keep. I feel like the YouTube thing is more fun when it's like a part-time job. Although having said that, I've been on a sabbatical from medicine for the last what is it, 7 weeks, and I haven't once missed it. And every day feels like there's something entirely new happening, and
Yeah.
things in the business are just moving so fast that I feel like I'm not in any danger of getting bored by being a full-time creator, which I am for the time being.
You,
So
you
I don't
might
know.
you might feel differently too if you could get, 500K plus from actually, I mean, I don't know how much you're making off the YouTube right now,
Hmm.
but if it's like if you could totally replace that medical income with YouTube without and like doing the courses and things like that, right? Like, is it how much of since you specifically mentioned like doing it 2, 3 days a week and getting the 200, 300K,
Yeah.
like if you just got that 200, 300K without going in, would you still go in? And if you weren't getting paid to do it?
Oh yeah, so that's a good question. Like in the UK, the most a doctor earns is about 100,000 a year working full time. Like when
Wow.
you're in your 50s, you're earning 100,000 a year working full time, and so like my YouTube revenue is so much higher than that that I
Yeah,
think it would be I think it genuinely is a case of I would do this for free rather than I'm doing this because it makes me the 100 grand for
that's
a
great.
day of work. But that's like a question I always ask doctors. There's like if you won the lottery, would you still continue to do medicine for fun? And half of them say I'd leave immediately, and the other half that I've spoken to say I would still continue because it's fun, but I would do it very part time. And that kind of makes me think that okay, well, given that I enjoy medicine, let's optimize for the doing it very part time, and then just I don't know, hosting people, learning how to cook, doing other fun stuff, being a creator,
Yeah.
writing
Well,
on the
I
side.
mean, I feel like it's important to have that because it's especially when we were talking about like systems and business building and
Yeah,
whatnot, it's really tempting to feel like you should never do anything that isn't your $1,000 an hour work.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, I think that actually half of the joy in life is like doing work that it doesn't make sense for you to do,
yeah,
right? It's like finding those projects and things that even though it's inefficient for you to do them, it's like, yeah, but I feel like it, right? It's like this, like I enjoy building furniture,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Same.
Like we're filling out this Airbnb house, and
Yeah,
so literally for like 4 hours last night, I was just building furniture in the like empty living room and bedroom, and it's like, yeah, okay, we could have paid a handy or whatever to come and do this, but I don't know, there's like some joy in just listening to a podcast and doing stuff like that. And I feel that way about random stuff on like my Webflow site too.
yeah,
It's like I love doing the web design tweaks, whatever. It's like it would make much more sense to pay a designer or whatnot to do this stuff,
yeah.
but I feel like it brings me joy. So
Oh mate,
I feel like finding
yeah,
finding that stuff is important.
it's exactly the same for me. Like yesterday, we got like a new bed, a new media thingy, a new table, and a new bookshelf. I spent like literally all day just building furniture, and it was so much fun. And we had people who came in to wall mount the TV because I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't try this myself. But like the whole day was just like building furniture. And the day before that, I was just kind of tweaking my Ghost site, and I just live streamed it on YouTube and Twitch. And for like 3 hours until like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was just like tweaking away and editing the spacing, and people in the chat were giving me CSS tips. I was like, how the hell does Flexbox work? And people were explaining it. And it certainly wasn't a good use of my time. It was very much a $10 an hour activity, as Kay would say, but it was really fun. And I remember, back in the day when I was first getting super into PHP and building like SaaS products and stuff for my first business, I would just kind of just completely go into this flow state and just lose track of the time. I'd be like, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I've just been plugging away on Sublime Text for the last 5 hours. And, I feel so energized. I don't want to go to sleep. So I think I'm just trying to.
I don't know. I love finding stuff like that. I honestly feel like a lot of work and, the quote unquote passive income or whatever is, it's like sometimes you're doing some of this work and building some of this other stuff so that you can waste more time on the work that's not going to pay you as much as like the other stuff. That was a really awkward way of phrasing it, right? But
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's like I like being able to do other stuff because like I'm starting to do YouTube stuff now, and it's like, yeah, I could just talk about Rome, but it's like I'm also trying to learn archery for hunting, right?
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm gonna do videos on that as well, even though I know there's a 0% chance it's gonna drive as much interest as like the Roman productivity stuff. It's like I want to. It's like I feel like it, and finding that balance is kind of like an ever-present challenge to not just overfixate on like revenue and productivity maximization.
Yeah, I think is it a tweet from Naval where he says like, the real goal is to find something that you like and find a way to continue on to keep on doing it, or words to that effect. And so like occasionally people ask me, hey, so what's the next step? What's the next step after YouTube? Like, do you want to go on TV or something? And I'm like, no, of course not. Like, I'm basically living my end game life right now, where all the stuff that I'm doing is the stuff that I enjoy doing, and I just want to keep it that way. Which is a super kind of privileged position to be in, I guess. So I'm curious on the YouTube front, what are your like challenges / pain points / how are you thinking about it at the moment? And I ask because I'm sort of working on a course about this, potentially with Tiago, like you've done with your own thing, but cool. Yeah. It's in the works.
Okay. Well, that was actually one thing I was going to mention is like, I love what they're doing at Skillshare, but you should definitely have like standalone courses.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it's like I would have happily paid $250-$300 for your Final Cut Pro class.
Damn.
Oh yeah, it's like no question.
Yeah, I think I made about $3 or $4 off the fact that you watched 5 hours of it, or however long the class was on Skillshare. So it's a very, very tiny.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's completely unfair to you. Yeah, I mean, so my thinking on it is like I'm a reader. I prefer to consume pretty much everything by reading.
Okay.
It's the way I prefer to learn. It's the way I prefer to like express and whatnot. But I also know that I'm in the minority, and I've just had, I put up like a few incredibly rough videos of me just like doing stuff in Rome, and they, one of them's almost at like 40,000 views, and was like driving a bunch of people to the site and, who ended up buying the course. And I was getting a lot of feedback from people who like found me talking about Rome on YouTube or like found one of my videos. And I was like, wow, there's like a lot of people on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to think that people actually watch videos, because I also prefer to read like a blog post. And if I'm looking for a tutorial, I want a blog post I can scan in 30 seconds. I don't want to sit through an 8-minute video, but exactly. People do that.
I think most people prefer to learn and consume information that way. I mean, humans are visual, right? Like it makes sense. And, I think I'm just, perhaps like you, I really think that we're kind of like the odd ones here. And I just realized that kind of like what we were talking about before with reusing content and topic ideas, it's like I had, a lot of like fairly good content on my blog or on Twitter that I just wasn't exposing to the majority of the internet in a sense by not having it here. And, when I started doing the SEO consulting, it was to help fund like doing it was because I couldn't make very much money doing like the content stuff, right? And that kind of like changed a bit this year. And like obviously I'm still doing Growth Machine too, but now it's like, oh wow, there's actually a lot of value to be had in like building up an audience,
Yeah.
both for doing stuff like the Roam course and because I like started doing more angel investing and I was realizing that like I could
Okay.
promote products
Yeah.
and like to my list that I was loving, and
Yeah.
then those products could like gain a ton of new users, and I could actually be like a very useful like kind of investor in that sense.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so part of why I want to focus more on building up an audience is like, or exposing my work to more people is it's like that just opens up more doors to do more of what I love. Like I love meeting people who are building really cool companies. I love like getting to beta test products early and, make little recommendations and tweaks, right? It's like when the Readwise guys were building the Roam integration,
Yeah.
I had like a half-hour call with them to go
Yeah.
over like, what I would love to see in it, right? And just like talking about that and how we're doing it, and they ended up using some of that in the build. And it's like that was super cool. And so I just like YouTube seems like such a great way for me to reuse a lot of my ideas and to like do a lot of stuff that I wouldn't do as blog posts normally.
Mm.
Uh, and just like a fun way to mix it up because I find writing can get super exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I can only do it for so long,
Yeah.
but that energy drain doesn't seem to carry over to YouTube, so or to video editing and stuff like that. So it's like if I'm like really tired of writing, I could do some video stuff. If I'm tired of video, I could do some writing. Like I can mix it up, and I just like being on multiple platforms. I feel
Yeah.
like it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's good like what's the term? It's sort of like hedging, right?
Yeah.
You're not over invested in just like email. You've got email and Twitter and YouTube and whatnot. Like they all play together really nicely. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to work on it for 3 to 6 months, see where it goes and reevaluate from there. But I mean, I think the main pain point is just like where do I start? Because the thing that's actually very helpful for me is like I watch your most recent videos and I see all the edits and whatnot that you do, and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't know how to do any of this. Like I'm totally not going to go there. So I went back and watched like your oldest videos, and I watched like Thomas Frank's oldest videos,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, the editing on these is like not very good at
Yeah.
all. Like this is great. Like, all right, cool. I just so I mean the way that I think about it for me now is like I do a video, and then for the next one I try to add in like one more little thing to make it better. I'm not trying to do everything at once. I'm gonna like do a video that I know is not like the ideal in my head perfect video, and then I'm going to try to like improve one little thing. So what I loved about your Skillshare course was that it was like walking through the process of editing that one video.
Yeah.
But even that to me, I was like, okay, this is more than I want to do on this first video. So I'm just going to skip a few of these and I'm going to get one out.
Yeah.
And then for the next video, I'm just going to watch his like Ken Burns effect video and I'm just going to add that in.
Oh,
And
interesting.
for the
Yeah.
next one, I'm going to watch the like audio editing and I'm just going to do that. It's like making it much more bite size
Okay.
is very helpful for me to like not get overwhelmed and quit. But that's just me. Different people learn in different ways. But it's like if you were going to do like a 5-week class or a 10-week or whatever, like kind of live, what I would love is like each week we're adding on a new layer and each week we have to publish a video. So it's like
I'm taking
week
notes here.
one. Yeah. It's like week one, we're just going to do like a pretty basic A cut with maybe some really simple transitions or something. And then next week we're going to add like a B cut with like some phone screenshots or computer screenshots. And then the week after that, we're going to add in some like lower thirds and just little things like that so that it ramps really seamlessly. And then by week 10, we're like watching our videos from week 1 and then watching our videos from week 10. It's like, holy shit, like I learned so much in these last 10 weeks. Because what I've been starting to do is like building up a checklist in Roam of like what to do for each video.
Okay.
Just kind of like as I go through the editing process each time and get reminded of different things. So, because it's like, it's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a ton to learn on the editing side. And I think I will outsource it eventually once the channel gets to a certain size. Like my goal is to get to like 20,000-ish by the end of the year.
Okay.
So like 3.5K now. I feel like it's kind of doable. That's about how many Twitter followers I have. So it's like I can maybe get there by December if I work hard at it. But then it's like, eventually I want to hire someone to help with editing. But until then, I want to like make sure I know how to do it so we can like build those processes out together. But yeah, I love it. It's exciting. It's really fun. Like I really like doing it. I like working with video and audio, and I've done a lot of podcasting, so I'm just adding the other half now.
Awesome.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how it progresses, because I think that's one area where a lot of like pro bloggers are not taking advantage of necessarily, and even someone like Tim Ferriss has historically invested very little effort into his YouTube channel, and he's now starting to do that. And it just seems like such a no-brainer, especially with the amount of blog content you've got. Literally all of those could be like really good videos. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to
sort of.
see where you go with it.
Yeah.
On the courses front, so Skillshare versus self-hosted. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Skillshare it's fine, but it's like $3 to $4 per user for watching like a super in-depth class that's like 3 hours long. Um, but if I have like, I don't know, 20,000 people watching it a month, that's like, 50, 60 grand a month, which, is nothing to scoff at. And yet I feel like I'm overly reliant on Skillshare now. It like makes up such a big chunk of my overall revenue, and it's a sort of being reliant on an external platform, which is always a bit dangerous. The thing that I worry about, that I was talking to Tiago and David about as well, is just this fear of charging money for stuff.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's just, I don't know, like the thought of having courses on my own website and charging for them, or God forbid, I was doing a live course and charging, thousands for that, like Tiago and David do, just fills me with dread. And so I've been speaking to Billy, their like email marketing guy. I've got another call with him tomorrow, and he's helping kind of brainwash me out of that mindset that I feel bad charging for stuff. Is that something that you've ever struggled with?
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's something that, you know, I still feel that at times too. And it is tough because there is like, you want everyone to have access to
Yeah.
the information, right? But on the flip side, you also want people to take the information seriously.
Mm.
And, there's just very low completion for low value courses, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be incentivized to make something super high value, right? So I think that, there's a lot of ways you can frame it in your head. And to me, it's like I prefer to pay for quality in pretty much everything that I do.
Yeah.
I never want like the cheaper, the free version of something, because I know that if somebody or something is successfully charging a high amount of money for a product sustainably and people are still recommending it, that must mean that it's like a very high quality product,
Okay.
right? It's like like I would never look on Skillshare for a course on how to do something
Yeah.
if you didn't directly say that yours is on Skillshare.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm not looking there is because I just know that it's typically lower quality stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because it's so easy to access it. Right. Whereas when I see something like Tiago's course, which I think is like $2,000 now, but people are recommending it like crazy, I'm like, okay, that is something that is absolutely going to be like a really high ROI for me.
Yeah.
And like to me, I try to frame like all purchasing as like ROI based. So, and I tell this to people with like Rome sometimes too, where they're like, oh, like why would I pay $15 a month? Evernote $5 a month, and I'm
Yeah.
like, do you know how much like more productive you can be for only $15 a month? Like,
Yeah.
I would probably pay like 300 a month if I had to, right? It's
Yeah.
just like in terms of the ROI, right? And so with courses too, like that's a no-brainer to me. It's like I took Building a Second Brain 3 years ago when it was $600, right? And I've gotten tens of thousands of dollars in value out of it since then. So in my, the way I always think about pricing too is like, one, how valuable of a product do I want to make? Like, do I want to make $100 product or $1,000 product or whatever? And then, that helps frame the actual like creation process.
Oh, okay.
But then there's also this question of what type of student do I want to attract?
Yeah.
Because the $10 student and the $100 student, the $1,000 student are all very different people. And like managing $1,000 student is significantly easier than $110 students. I mean, I even saw a big delta going from $100 to $250 for the Rome course. Like the volume in sales did not like drop that much in terms of like daily sales, but the quality or the number of support inquiries dropped significantly. So
Oh, interesting.
there's just like it's a different mentality when you get into higher prices as well. That makes a huge difference. And it's the same thing at Growth Machine, right? It's like we charge pretty much top of market for content because the people who want to spend $100 per article are typically really miserable clients to work with.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just kind of, who do you want to interact with? Where do you want to compete? What level of product do you want to create? And I think framing it all that way makes it pretty easy to say, like, no, I want to make a $500 product and I want to work with $500 people.
Yeah.
And I'd rather work with 20 of them. But then I think you also have the free stuff, right? Like I'm very much in the free or expensive camp.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
I don't like, like I have some exceptions to this, like my brain product is $25,
Yeah.
but I'd much rather have tons of free Roam videos and
Mm.
then a $250 Roam course than have like a $50 Roam course and no free videos or
Sure.
something, right? Because it's like it's all going to be awesome marketing for the paid product. If people want to piece stuff together on their own, they can, but then people who want to do like the serious thing, they can as well. And you're just going to like have much better clientele at the higher price tier. Um,
Yeah. That's an interesting way of thinking about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in my experience, like, and this is the other thing that's influenced me, I, every single successful, like, high earning creator I know does it that way,
Yeah. Everyone says this.
right? It's like
Literally everyone. Yeah.
if you talk to Ankur, the CEO of Teachable,
Yeah.
about like the most successful creators on the platform,
Mm.
it's like that is what works. Like that is what's sustainable. That's what's manageable as a business. It's like do tons of awesome free stuff. It's like you and I are here talking for 2 hours, and like we're not charging for this
Yeah.
talk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's mostly us hanging out, so it's cool that people want to.
Sure.
But it's like you do lots of free stuff, and then it's like, yeah, if people want to go do the Skillshare class, they can. If they want to do the Roam class, they can. I love that balance because then I'm not like charging for tons of little things. It's like you charge for a few big things, and then you just do lots of free stuff to market for it. So I don't
Interesting.
know, and I think like, I mean, dude, you've got like 1.1 million YouTube subscribers. Like your editing is sick. Like you're a very like you're very like down to earth and you're not braggy about
Oh,
anything.
thanks.
And so I think that's like super refreshing
Yeah.
for, any very successful online personality. So,
Mm.
nobody's going to see you charging a high price tag and go like, oh, like, oh, he's sold out. Like he's taking advantage of his audience. It's like, nobody's going to, I mean, you're going to get a few messages like that. Like it's
Yeah.
guaranteed, but then you're also going to have probably like a few hundred people who could not be more excited to pay $1,000 to learn
Mm.
with you for 5 to 10 weeks on how to do what you do. Like
Oh man.
the
Yeah, you're
ratio
right.
of super excited is so much higher than the number of people who are going to be like pissed off at you. And it's like, I don't know, like you kind of just let the annoyed people go because they were never going to be customers or good long time like subscribers anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I guess it's one of those things where, so one thing that Matt Diavella says is that people will complain at every single price point, and so you just have to kind of sort of drown out that audience. And I guess yeah, I was saying for me the thing I think I overly worry about is the fact that my initial audience was students. And so in my head, there's this whole thing of like, there's a lot of these students. I know students don't have that much cash. If I start suddenly charging a few hundred to a few $1,000s for stuff, which wouldn't really be aimed at students, it would be things like, how to grow a YouTube channel for your thing that makes money and stuff, and wouldn't be aimed at the person who's just getting started out. But even so, I feel in my head, maybe, those original, like the OG fans, the ones who are sort of 15 years old and, still watching the videos, maybe they'd feel hard done by. But I guess it's like that
do a
thing.
scholarship. That's what Tiago does.
Oh yeah, that could work.
Yeah. That's what I do for the Roam course too. It's like if anyone's a student and they
Yeah.
email me and they're like, "Hey, I'm a student," or "I got laid off during COVID," like, can you give me a discount on the course or something because I really want to take it? I pretty much always give it to them, right?
Oh, okay.
It's like there's no reason you couldn't do the same thing
Yeah.
because I want students to be able to take the stuff too, and they're just
Mm.
not in the same like purchasing tier. And I find that like anybody who asks very respectfully is always going to be super respectful of your time once they're in the program.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess because for my first company, I've got some online courses for medical students, a lot people applying to medical school, and we charge £100 each for those. But we have like a bursary program where basically if someone puts in the effort to send in an application, we'll give them however much money off they want. And that
Yeah.
historically has helped me feel better about charging for this service that does otherwise kind of increase inequality in society. But I guess that could work for this stuff as well. Is there any reason why you haven't gone for like a super high priced self sort of live action Roam course?
Yeah, I don't have a nice way to describe this for myself, but I'm like very lazy and I'm not good at committing to like doing live sessions. And so I'm doing a live session for the Roam course now.
Hmm.
And it's sort of TBD if I'll do it again because it's like it's great money, obviously,
Hmm.
but I get much less joy out of doing the weekly live sessions and managing that than I
Yeah.
get out of like recording a self-paced one
Yeah.
and putting it out there. And I
Okay.
think that's because like I prefer to learn through the self-paced. And like when I took building a second brain, I was like so annoyed that I couldn't go at my own speed and that I
Yeah.
had to
No, same.
like so I
Yeah.
think that's just part of it for me. And like, I think I could do a really cool like longer thing and I might explore it in the future, maybe
Mm.
not for Rome, but for something else. But I don't know. I don't like doing the live sessions very much personally. So it's
Yeah.
like even if the money's great, right? Like you got to do stuff that's going to be energizing to you.
Of
So
course. Yeah. And I think, if you're at the point, which it sounds like you are, where you actually don't need more money to be happy, then at that point, what are you really optimizing for by?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to justify at that point.
We've got a super chat from Sean Cameron, who has donated £5. Thank you. To ask the question, what is best, single topic or multi-topic blogs? This sounds like it's one for you.
Yeah, it depends on your goals. If your goal is to make a website that gets a lot of traffic that you could like sell or that you could turn into a money-making asset, single topic is definitely better. If your goal is to build an audience as like an individual or as an influencer, multi-topic is definitely better. Because for single topic, you can build like an awesome, photography review site and make a ton of money on affiliate and ads. But no one's really going to care who you are because they're just there for the photography info. But if you build multi-channel, then you'll probably never be able to sell the website, right? Like I could never sell
Mm.
nataliason.com because it's like who could take it over? But it's much better for building an audience because then people are sticking around purely because they're interested in you and not because they're just like interested in a certain topic. And so that builds a lot more long time loyalty in like people who are actually interested in like the person behind the post versus just the topic of the post.
Fantastic. That is definitely worth his money because I imagine you charge a lot for like one-to-one consulting. So thank you for the £5 super chat. That'll fund a takeaway next time I get a takeaway or coffee rather.
Yeah.
Um, a few other things I want to say. So, do you have any coaches?
I have a fitness coach.
Oh, okay.
So
How is
got
that?
a oh, it's incredible. It's like some of the best money I've ever spent. There's a really cool gym here in Austin,
Mm.
and the way their model works is you can't be a member of the gym unless you're working with one of their trainers, and then their trainer does all of your fitness programming. They can do your diet programming, sleep programming, like literally everything,
Okay.
and they do it all through like an app. So I can actually show you here. Uh, so it goes through this app, True Coach, and it's like got all of my like training for the week.
Okay.
And then you also send them like food logs, sleep logs, and whatever stuff you're optimizing around.
Mm.
But when they assign workouts, you can go into the gym and do them anytime. Your trainer doesn't have to be working.
Okay.
So you're not like stuck going in
Yeah.
at 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week. You get to like play around with the schedule a lot more, which is awesome because it's like you never know when meetings are going to come up or you're going to have stuff. Maybe you want to go in the morning, the afternoon. And so that's been incredible. It's like definitely the best shape I've been in. And we like, he trained me to run the Austin Marathon in 3 months last year, which was crazy. It was like very fast ramp. But he's awesome. So that's the only coach I'm actively working with right now. I've worked with Chris Sparks at Forcing Function before
Oh yeah.
as like a high output productivity coach, and
Yeah.
he was phenomenal. He helped a lot with like system stuff at Growth Machine that I was working on last year.
Okay.
I worked with a really incredible sales coach
Yeah.
earlier this year. not for me, but to help me get the sales process out of my head for Growth Machine.
Mm.
Because, you know, how we were talking about like the challenges of delegating and like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to do everything. Like sales was the number one thing where I was like, there's no way I could ever hire somebody else to like do the sales for Growth Machine. It has to be me.
Mm.
Uh, and he finally, or he helped me finally figure it out. And we hired someone who's like way better at it than I ever was. And it's like, sure enough, now the company is making more money than it ever was when I was like doing all the sales, right? So he was incredible for helping set up that process. Those are the only really active ones. I don't have like a strong business coach right now,
Mm.
but that's why I'm hanging out with you for 2 hours so that I can use you as an informal YouTube coach.
Yeah, likewise. I've got using my informal blog and charging money for courses, coach. But no, I've got my first session with my personal trainer tomorrow morning.
Oh, sweet.
So that'll be fun because everyone I know who has one says it's such good ROI that it's just such a no-brainer.
Just like
Yeah.
I know how to do fitness programming like at a very basic level. Like I know how to, you know, go in and increase weights and whatnot, but uh like just having somebody who's telling you, no, this is what you're doing on this day, like figuring it out for you there, and somebody who you know is going to be disappointed in you if you miss a workout
Yeah.
is like that alone is worth a good amount of money because it just keeps me so accountable. So
Yeah.
I've loved having it.
Yeah, I think the accountability is such a big part of it, and it's been a real struggle to sort of talk to my mum about this stuff because she's very much a sort of so she moved to this country when she was sort of having done all her medical training in Pakistan and then in Africa and had to like really work from the ground up as a single parent to sort of make ends meet, and now because of the sort of base that she's built up for me and my brother, we're both doing pretty well, and so we can do things like hire a personal trainer and stuff. And to her, it seems like such a waste. Like, why would you pay this person like £30 an hour to do a workout with you? Surely you can just like you kind of do it yourself. But I think it's like a shift in mindset from sort of focusing on the results and paying for the thing that'll get you the results, rather than paying for the information, as it were.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also, uh, you know, is your mom salaried or is she like
Oh yeah,
entrepreneurial?
salaried very much. Yeah.
So this is something that I have been thinking about more recently too. I think that when you're somebody who can use free time to make more money, it's
Mm,
much easier to justify spending money on things that give you free time.
mm,
But if you have a salary, you have like a fixed pool of money that everything comes from.
yeah.
And so it's like very zero sum, where if you put money towards a personal trainer, you no longer have that money for travel
Yeah.
or like restaurants or things, right? Whereas like you and I know that if we have a personal trainer, then we're going to be like more mentally sharp. We could, you know, work a little bit harder. We get a couple more productive hours into the
Mm,
week. We can like make more money, and that personal trainer is like more than paying for themselves. So I feel like that always affects the mindset a lot too, because like I sometimes have this challenge with my mom too, where because she makes like, you know, 5 to 10 times as much as I do, right? She's like super like awesome, successful lawyer,
okay.
and she doesn't have a dedicated virtual assistant, right?
Right.
Or a personal trainer. And I'm like,
Yeah.
mom, like
Yeah.
you can afford the like please, like you could get all this time back in your life. And so I think it's just like different mindsets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have another super chat from Carlos who's saying, Nat, what is your favorite coffee variety or origin?
Ooh. All right. So there's a absolutely incredible coffee shop here in Austin called oh my, can you still hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, weird. My browser froze. Anyway, okay. I'm going to share this in the chat. Um, this is a guy in Austin who like hand renovated an Airstream trailer and turned it into this incredible little boutique coffee shop. And he roasts some of the best coffee I've ever had. And he's got most of them online to order, but he's got this Nepal coffee. Um, that it's definitely one of the more expensive ones, but it's like super fruity and bright in like a very surprising way for a coffee. Like it's incredible. His Nepal one is amazing, and then his Colombia is like a really great daily drinker that's got like kind of blueberry chocolatey flavors to it. This is like one of my go-to random gifts for people, just like
Mm.
sending them a bottle of coffee from a jar of beans from this guy because he does such a great job. And I've got like a 64-ounce growler of cold brew in my fridge at pretty much all times and go there almost every morning. Like it's just awesome. It's one of my favorite things about Austin too, is that there's this very strong culture of like incredible craftsmanship without insane prices. Uh, and so he really, I think, evokes that in having, expensive but not insanely expensive, but then super, super, super high quality coffee. So definitely check him out.
Cool. And we have another super chat, which was a question about Webflow versus WordPress, but people in the chat are linking your article where you explain why you use Webflow. So
Yeah, it's
I think that
perfect.
answers that. A couple more things I wanted to ask you about. I really want to talk to you about angel investing, but maybe we'll do that off the thingy because at some point because I don't think it'll
We
be
can talk
relevant
about
for a
it
lot
here.
of people.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I have a few tweets that you have done in the past that I just would like you to riff on for a little bit, if that's all right.
Sure.
So here's one. I like this because I always ask people on these deep dives about how they feel about goals and like goal setting as a thing. And you said, I don't think I've ever hit 5% of the goals I've set. They're just directions that tend to lead me to new, interesting places. The end result is always wildly divergent from the original goal. Can you just sort of talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this when I can't remember exactly what the tweet was that I was responding to, but uh it's funny because I think that if you're in like these productivity circles, you always have these exercises of like setting goals and then like setting big goals and then what are my goals for the year and then my goals for the quarter and you know working them down that way. And I do those exercises a lot, but I never end up like hitting most of the goals that I set and like odd things end up coming up instead. So and in what I should have expanded it to say is that I either like hit the goal massively faster than I ever anticipated, or I never hit it because I don't actually end up caring about hitting it, or I hit something else instead. So, a few examples that come to mind. When I hired Chris at the forcing function as like my productive life coach,
Hmm.
we we did this 10-year planning exercise, right? And he was like, list out things that you would like to have accomplished in 10 years. And I was like, oh, I'd like to own a house. I want to be married. I want to like, there were a few of these things. And then at the time I was thinking that, oh, I would like get married in a year or so and then maybe buy a house in Austin after like, 2 or 3 years. Right. And then literally like 3 months after he and I did that exercise, I got married and bought a house in the same week. It
Yeah.
was like the craziest week of my life so far. We literally like we flew to Tahoe on Friday. We closed on our house Thursday, flew to Tahoe to get married Friday, got married and came back Sunday, and then moved into the house Monday. So like in a 5-day span, like all of that happened. It was awesome. Um,
Solid.
so that was one thing where it was like, okay, I have this like big life goal, and then like, oh wait, no, I'm actually like doing it right now.
Hmm.
Or like the Rome course thing is another good example, right? It was like, oh, I'll make like 10 to 15K off this. It'll be like a fun little thing. And then it's just like blew that out of the water, right? So that's like super achieving the goals. But then there's like diverging from the goals. So one was like the year I started Growth Machine,
Hmm.
I had a goal to get it to 250K in revenue per month by the end of the year. And I was just like, yeah, this seems like a cool goal. Like I can maybe get to this. Like, I don't know. Actually, no, this was the second year of Growth Machine. So we'd had an awesome first year. We'd ended the first year at about like 90 or 100K per month in revenue. And then at the start of the second year, I was like, I want to get it to 250K by the end of the year and per month. And I like, I really fixated on that goal for the first 6, 7, 8 months. And then I kind of realized that I was actually hurting the company by fixating on that goal too much
Okay.
because we were taking clients who were bad fits. Sorry. We were hiring faster than we should have been. We were just like making bad decisions in the pursuit of like maximum top line revenue. And so then it was like, all right, I'm actually going to just abandon this goal and
Yeah.
focus on like margin and stability because those are way better things to optimize around. And then same thing like beginning of this year, right? January, I had the goal of like, all right, we did about 2 million last year. I want to do 4 to 5 million this year. And like January was super strong, February was super strong, and then COVID hit and we lost half of our clients in
Yeah.
3 weeks, right? So it was like, okay, like we're gonna have to rejigger the goals, right? And the more and more that stuff like that, another one was like I had a goal of like doing running a marathon and doing a 405 deadlift within like 3 years.
Okay.
And then yeah, my trainer got me there in 3 months,
Right.
right? I did them the same week, which like felt so
Oh,
cool. I was like,
nice.
oh, this is like super badass,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, I hit those goals, but like what next, right? So
Yeah.
I the way I think about goals a lot more now is just as like directions to make me think about the things that I want to change in my daily routine and in my
Mm.
habits now. So
Okay.
very much like James Clear, right?
Yeah.
Like you need goals to give you directions to aim at, but like doing the planning around the goals is not actually that helpful. They're just helpful for like creating a target that you then figure out how to like steer the ship towards because you're going
Yeah.
to move in some direction every day, but having goals that you're like aiming at will help you again like direct the ship with your habits and whatnot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like very healthy to give them up. It's like I had a goal to run the DC marathon in under 4 hours in October, but then it got canceled and I've had like a ton of crazy work stuff going on. And so I told my trainer, I was like, look, dude, I'm like just not motivated to work out a ton right now. So let's just do like 3 days a week, 30 to 45 minutes. Let's like dial it way back
Yeah.
and just like kind of maintain and build like functional strength for a little while. So I do those exercises still, but I really just think about like, what do I want to aim at? And it's like the things I'm aiming at right now are, there's one big goal around growth machine process stuff I'm focused on. There's like growing the YouTube channel. And then there's like building up this Airbnb property with Cosette, right? And it's like those are the three big things I'm aiming at. And then the like fun thing is like learning archery and all of that, right?
Mm.
And I have goals in each of them, but I'm not really going to care if I like hit that exact goal because again, it's just a way for me to think about like what to steer towards, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. I also have a weird relationship with goals, where like partly I subscribe to sort of the Jason Fried approach of like, well, I've never really had a goal. I don't believe in goals because a goal just sets you up for unhappiness until you get there, and then once you get there, it's this hollow feeling, and you're like, okay, what's next? But
Yeah.
then like the other way I think about it is like, as for example, having the goal to run a marathon, as James Clay would say, having the goal is not actually going to get you there. It's the system that you build around it and the habits that'll get you there. But the goal gives
Yeah.
you a direction. And I found that like I had a call with a business coach, like the first session last week, where I was thinking, okay, let's get a business coach, let's see what happens. And he was asking all these questions about like, what are your goals? What are like your revenue goals and stuff? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really have any goals. The goal is to just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. But then I realized actually, at the moment, I'm concerned by my sort of the business's over reliance on platforms like Skillshare and YouTube, and I'd like to get to a point where 50% of our revenue, let's just say, is from self-hosted stuff. And he was like, "Great, that's a goal." And I haven't thought about it since, but if I think back in the last week, like a lot of my actions have now been slowly moving in that direction of, okay, how do we actually make this more diversified so that it's more based on self-hosted revenue rather than external platforms? So in that sense, even just that one question of what's your goal was helpful as an exercise.
Absolutely. I mean, in January of this year, I set the goal to have the blog make more than 10K a month every month.
Mm.
And then the end of January, I launched the Rome course,
Yeah.
right? So it was
Completely blew it
like,
out the water. Yeah.
yeah. It's like I think you're absolutely right. It's like just putting that thought in your head is so helpful for making decisions. It's almost like, creating maxims for things is really helpful. It's like for me with Growth Machine now, I'm much less fixated on like revenue and profit and much more like building a really great workplace for everybody on the team.
Sure.
Because especially like after building up the team for 3 years and having a lot of cool people on it, it's like the stuff that ends up feeling the best and the most special is not like hitting revenue goals. It's somebody being able to like go on maternity leave for 4 months, or somebody buying a house, or somebody like being able to cover a huge medical bill with like the
Yeah.
company medical insurance, right? It's like that stuff feels awesome, like way more than the revenue, like hitting revenue metrics. So it's like just thinking about that in the back of the head. It's like, okay, well, is doing this change going to optimize for like quality of life for everyone,
Yeah.
or right? It's like that's really helpful. And same thing for what you were saying with like, yeah, okay, how do we get more of this self-hosted? Like just having that reminder in the back of your head is so useful.
Nice. And last one, I've got a few more, but well, I think we'll call it a day after this. You've said let's share screen with the chat. One common thread among all the really successful and productive people I know is that they have a systems mindset. Like, what do you mean by that? What is a systems mindset?
I think it's a little bit like what we were talking about before,
Mm.
where you kind of refuse to do the same thing multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like it's a symptom of, or it would be interpreted as a symptom of ADHD in anyone else, because it's like, oh, you won't do the same thing multiple times. Like you must have a hard time paying attention. It's like, no, you just, once you know that things can be systematized and that you can make SOPs for stuff and that you can either use technology or hire someone who's better at this than you, or like improve your process, like then you feel like you're wasting time every time you do something again.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in college, I did this internship with like a consulting firm for the government, and there was a guy there working on like tech stuff with there, also an intern, and I knew nothing about coding at the time, but I was doing some stuff in Excel and I was getting frustrated because I was like, there has to be a way we could like automate some of this. And he was like, yeah, if you ever do the same thing on a computer twice, then you're wasting time. Like
Yeah.
you should have found a way to optimize, or you should have found a way to automate it. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like I'd never thought about that before. And then I ended up like teaching myself Visual Basic and like coding a lot of their Excel functions into scripts.
Mm.
And then basically like automated myself out of the internship by the time I left. And then they were just like using those scripts to do the things they've been paying an intern to do and like didn't need somebody to help with that anymore. And it was like, oh, this is really cool. Like you can actually use technology to like replace your job in a lot of cases. It's like at Growth Machine, we use Zapier extensively. Like Zapier does so much for us that it probably saves us at least 100 to 150 grand a year in salary,
No way.
where we have to,
Okay.
yeah, we would have to be paying people to do all of these like project management organizations between Asana and Sheets and
Yeah.
wherever else. But like we've built all these really robust Zaps out that do all of it for us. And so we don't need somebody like, we probably need multiple people, honestly, like going in and doing all of it manually. So like knowing how to do that is a massive competitive advantage. And knowing when you can use technology or when you should hire someone or when you should stop doing something or when you can improve the process. It's like that mindset is so powerful. And you really only like build a huge business by extending your own capabilities by working with other people and working with technology. And it's pretty much impossible to do that if you don't know how to think in terms of like creating repeatable systems that involve people and technology. So it's just like such a core mentality. And
Yeah.
I think that like if somebody is really happy or if somebody, it's really hard to grow something if you're fine doing the same thing over and over and over again, right?
Mm.
Because you're not going to have that annoyance with
Yeah.
repetition, right? And you kind
Yeah.
of need that like laziness, so to speak. I think it could be interpreted as laziness to a lot of people, right?
Mm.
But it's also a big competitive advantage, depending on how you like harness it.
Yeah. No, it's like I have a huge allergic reaction every time I find myself repeating an action and like, okay, right, I need to make a text expander snippet for this, especially with like certain YouTube comments when it was things like people always asking, which keyboard do you use? I now
Yeah.
have like the iOS keyboard replacement thingy where I can just type in 2 letters and it will just fill out a whole thing with an affiliate link. And it's just so
Huge.
helpful. Yeah.
I mean, Amanda and I recently did this for like all of my affiliate links, or I just created like nataliason.com/whatever
Yeah.
for like all of those links because I was sick of looking them up, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
I also created redirects for like people asked for my text expander snippets for Roam all the time.
Yeah.
And so now you can just do like nataliason.com/Roam/text expander. And it's
Mm.
like, boom, there they are. Like I don't need
Solid.
to go dig these up for anyone. It's like even just little things like that make a big difference over the long term.
It really
Or
does.
I don't know about you, like I don't know how deep you are in like computer productivity and like hotkeys and stuff, but it's like having my mouse on the fastest setting and like knowing all the computer hotkeys and whatnot. And it's like I'm so obsessive about all those little tweaks
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Then when I like use someone else's computer or see them using their computer,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
so
like
frustrating. It's like, why are you clicking on everything? Why are you
like
sort
so
of
slowly.
dragging it over to the side and you're hiding your dock and now the dock appears and you wait 3 seconds to click on Safari and then you're not even using Command L to go to the tool. I just there's so much of it.
But then it's funny because other people will
Yeah.
use my computer and they'll be like, "Whoa! Like, what is your mouse doing?"
Yeah, or like, how do I find the browser? Like, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
command tab, that command space, that'll take you to Alfred. Then type in CHR and then press enter. It's like a different way of operating. Anyway, Nat, this has been so much fun.
Seriously, I'm glad we did this.
There is still tons more to talk about with you. We should definitely do a round two sometime, maybe in a couple of months, and I'd love to check out progress on your YouTube channel in that time.
Yeah, we
And
can do it in like December or January or something. We can
solid.
see how that
Yeah.
20K goal went.
We can see
It's
it.
like I'm here talking about a goal while also
Yeah.
saying that I don't like goals, but it's a direction, right?
Perfect.
So
And in that time, hopefully, I'll have my own self-hosted stuff and start moving away from Skillshare reliance.
there we go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. Any final
thanks for having me.
final thing you'd like to plug for the audience? We have all of your links in the video description as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I would just say like follow me on YouTube if you want to see this progress, trying to emulate Ollie's excellence and talking about some of my stuff. And then if you want to chat, like hit me up on Twitter. It's where I'm most active. So I'll usually respond there. I spend an unhealthy amount of time on Twitter. So more than happy to answer any other questions there.
Amazing. All right. Thanks everyone for joining this session of the deep dive, and we'll see you next time.